It begins with the scent, not the steam or the stone or the oil, not yet. First comes the smell of bodies, dozens of them, sour and musky with layers, the kind that's baked into tunics and skin, steeped like old herbs in the folds of linen. It hits you before the door does, rising in gentle wafts from the alley that leads to the baths. You breathe it in because you have no choice, and it settles somewhere behind your eyes, where it will linger for hours like an unwelcome guest with opinions. Your sandals slap against the damp stone, the kind of slap that tells you you've already stepped in something you didn't want to investigate. The bathhouse looms ahead, not grand, not modest, just inevitable. A squat stone rectangle with steam curling from every crack, like it's exhaling after holding its breath all day. The walls glisten faintly, not with cleanliness, but with the kind of sweat only old buildings produce. Centuries of damp breath, mossy mortar, and a slow leak from somewhere that no one has fixed since the reign of whoever it was. You're already sweating. Not from exertion, though the sun has been merciless and your cloak was a mistake, but from apprehension. It beads along your scalp, trickles down your spine, and gathers with an almost accusatory boldness in the small of your back. You adjust your tunic. It clings in places it shouldn't. You are both overdressed and underprepared, which is, by now, your specialty. The doorman is not a man. He's a statue. But you nod to him anyway, out of instinct or shame. His eyes are blank, marble smooth and forever disapproving. He guards the threshold with a chipped nose and a broken foot, and somehow still manages to look more dignified than you ever have. Inside, the warmth swells. Not heat, not yet. Just warmth. Ambient, sour, alive. It curls into your nostrils and sticks to your arms. The air is thick, not like fog, but like someone else's breath that's been inhaled and exhaled 100 times too many. There's no breeze. Only the soft slosh of water and the sound of wet footsteps on slick tile, punctuated by the occasional cough that sounds like it came from deep within someone's soul. You follow a pair of sandaled feet ahead of you. Older man, possibly a merchant, definitely unaware of how transparent his tunic has become from humidity. His shoulders twitch as he walks, not from cold, but from habit. From the knowledge that here, in this place, one must always be slightly on edge, like sitting too close to someone in a communal latrine. The attendant greets you with the kind of smile that isn't. His teeth are brown at the edges, and his gaze slides off your face like it's made of wax. He gestures vaguely, not at you, but at your clothes, as if they're the problem. And in fairness, they probably are. You remove your outer layers with the grace of a startled chicken, peeling them off as they resist. Damp wool unwilling to part with your skin, like old regrets. There is nowhere to put your belongings, not truly. There is a shelf, or what once was a shelf, leaning at an angle that suggests it's been giving up for a while now. You place your things there as delicately as if you were setting down a sleeping baby made of twigs and anxiety. They slide anyway. You are now mostly naked, not fully. You've kept the linen undergarment for dignity or cowardice, but you are exposed. Your skin prickles, not from cold, but from awareness. There are too many eyes here, and too few of them seem interested in looking elsewhere. You try not to meet anyone's gaze. Everyone here has seen too much of everyone else, and it shows. The floor is slick, not wet. That would be fine. It's the kind of slickness that has texture. A thin, persistent film of water, sweat, oil, and time. You move with the caution of someone crossing a field of banana peels, trying not to slide, or slip, or think about what might be lodged between your toes when this is over. The first room is tepid. Tepid is generous. It's the kind of lukewarm that makes you question whether it's meant to be warm at all. The water is cloudy, not opaque, but suggestive, as if it remembers everything it has ever touched and is still making up its mind about you. You lower yourself into it. like one might lower themselves into a bad idea, slowly, hesitantly, with a mounting sense of irreversible commitment. The bench beneath the surface is stone. Of course it is. And it greets your thighs like a block of frozen regret. You shift, wince, try to find comfort where there is none, and eventually settle into discomfort like it's a second skin. Around you, other bodies bob and slouch, their movements languid, their expressions blank. No one speaks. The silence is not reverent, it is resigned. There is a man beside you with a mole shaped like a small country. He breathes heavily through his mouth. You try not to think about it. Across the room, a woman is rubbing oil onto her arms with the intensity of someone polishing furniture. The oil glistens, then drips, then floats in slick little clouds that drift toward you like curious eels. You pretend not to notice. You are pretending many things. Your skin begins to change. It does this slowly, without permission. First it softens, then it itches. The heat creeps in, not as a wave, but as a subtle negotiation between your pores and your pride. You sweat, and the sweat blends with the moisture in the air, and soon you're not sure where your body ends and the bath begins. There is no clock. Time unravels here like a badly spun thread, loose and frayed and impossible to rewind. You measure its passage by the wrinkling of your fingertips, by the slow descent of your sense of purpose, by the moment when you begin to believe you may never be dry again. Somewhere in the next chamber, someone coughs, a deep, wet cough. It echoes, then lingers, as if the walls themselves are reluctant to let go of it. You shiver, despite the heat, and shift your weight on the bench. The stone does not forgive. You are meant to relax. That is the point. But instead you endure. You endure the smells, the sights, the soft slap of water against flesh, the way the air sticks to your teeth. You endure the knowledge that this is just the beginning, that hotter rooms await and colder ones, and men with scraping tools, and things that will be poured over your head that no liquid should be. Still, for now, you sit. Because that is what everyone else is doing, and because standing would require effort, and because you are already sweating. You arrived that way. You will leave that way, if you leave at all. Somewhere near the ceiling, a drip begins. Slow, deliberate, endless. You close your eyes. It's easier not to look at anything. The light is too diffuse, the body's too soft around the edges. The stone presses against your spine like a quiet reminder that comfort is not the same as ease. You inhale the room again. It tastes like old wood and newer fears. Someone stands. Water sloshes. A towel is wrung out like a dying scream. The door to the hotter room yawns open, steam curling like a beckoning finger. You do not move. Not yet. You arrived, already sweating. You will continue. Because this is only the first room, and the bathhouse has many. You step from the tepidarium's humidity into the changing room, and the air shifts, not quite fresh, but less oppressive. Still, it clings around you, greasier somehow, carrying undercurrents of sweat that have aged into something pungent. Your breath quickens for a moment, not from exertion, but from the realization that you're about to disrobe completely, standing unclothed in public for the first time today. The walls here are lined with wooden pegs, mismatched in height and finish, each one slightly warped and aged, bearing the weight of tunics and cloaks abandoned in haste or resignation. They bear witness to the same cycle of arrival, exposure, and departure repeated day after day. Your cloak slides from your shoulders and falls in a slow thud, landing on the floor with a soft apology. Underneath, your tunic is damp from the hallway's humid press, cold for a heartbeat before the steam resumes its hold. You unlace the sandals you've dragged through dust and mud this morning, crumbled road and dirt still hiding in the straps. They give way with a soft squeak, and you stand barefoot on floorboards worn thin by countless toes and constant dampness, feeling their splintered edges underfoot. Dry wood would have been kinder, but the floor here has been soaked so many times it's never quite dry. Each plank still remembers water. A man enters on your left, his voice muffled by cloth as he rubs oil across his shoulders with methodical insistence, his chunky robe slipped halfway down his arms. You catch his scent, pungency laced with brine and thyme, like touring a shipboard kitchen at midday. He stands by a peg, his tunic slack and stained, and drops it with a soft rustle. You adjust your posture, reminding yourself that nudity here is expected, that your body is not remarkable. Still, the feel of draft against your skin nudges discomfort onto your awareness. As you move to a peg, your hand trembles slightly, encountering an indeterminate damp spot that reeks faintly of old sweat and wood rot. You smooth the fabric of your tunic over it, like one might brush dust from a shelf with too many memories. You search the peg for a slice of calm, something solid and stable, but even the wood seems tired. You lift your garment from it and let it fall in slow arcs, undone knots unraveling like small sighs. Fingers brush linen that's rough and uneven, like dragging cloth across a rope's edge until it frays. You inhale it. The fabric retains the smell of your home. Smoky hearth, straw mattress, the faint tang of goat's milk cheese. Noise you cling to, even briefly. You fold the tunic over the peg as if placing a bookmark in a book you don't want to close. Bare now, you feel more exposed than before. The flicker of torchlight catches the curve of your ribs, the softness of your stomach, and you see that this space, designed for dignity, is instead a confession. You can sense others studying the room's emptiness, waiting for someone to break the silence with humor or complaint. But there is no relief in laughter. You shuffle your feet instead, pressing against the worn bay leaves embedded in the floor. Those meant to freshen the air more by idea than effect. They lie dead beneath your toes, flattened and forgiving, just roots and memories. Something shifts behind you, a breath, a boxy silhouette, another figure too polite to stare. Their presence is a whisper, a tepid reminder that this too is communal. You close your eyes slightly and tilt your head down, as if looking at a spot on the floor can help maintain the illusion of privacy. But the air still presses against your back, hot and expectant, and you realize that even your skin has heard too much. You dig into your belt pouch and pull out a small cloth. You rub your arms, your shoulders, and you become aware of every hair you have, every uneven patch you find along your skin. You trace them with slow attention, the cloth catching on rough places, sliding across bumps that weren't always there. Every inch of exposed flesh becomes a journey you didn't volunteer for, and your breath shortens, as if the strip of linen in your hand could stitch armor across your skin. The door at the far end creaks open again, and a breeze slips in, carrying smells of dust, smoke, and something crisp. Maybe an apple vendor from the street. The fresh air is minimal, barely a scratch across the room, but it reminds you of outside your body, outside the ritual, somewhere you were before this began. You linger in the moment, half hoping the breeze will lift the stale cloak of other people's skin from your own, half dreading it, because the chill will remind you how alone you are. Your fingers brush against a second peg, smoother, newer looking. You wonder what life it had before this. A household peg? A soldier's home? An actress's dressing room? You imagine it carrying someone else's tunic, someone who stood here with different expectations. A young wife, perhaps, hoping for admiration from a husband, or an older woman, remnant of something forgotten. You trace the wood with your fingertips, feeling the texture change, a faint groove worn by nails, by presence, by routine. Nothing changes here except you. The torches sputter overhead and gutter. A drop of wax falls near your toes, sizzling when it hits the damp floor. You startle and scoot your foot back, conscious again of every inch of skin exposed. Wax smudges the wood, but eventually splinters off. You imagine it as a small scar left behind. Another memory in the changing room's archive. Your linen clings too closely to the peg. When you tug, you find it resists, caught in the teeth of its own threads. Undressing shouldn't feel like this. You wrestle the cloth free, breath catching as it droops and falls, leaving only the peg's stubby end in silence. The linen lands on the floor, forgotten. You stand there, nude and tentative, and feel the air like small cuts against your skin. Glancing over, you see puddles of water and oil collect in irregular rings around the peg bases. Each one reflects torchlight in odd ways, like tiny moons in miniature worlds. You step over one and feel the slick edge under your foot, draining your confidence. The circle seems intent on holding you, on slowing your exit. Your hands move reflexively upward to glance over your chest, your brazen certainty folded away. Shoulders slump as if nudged by someone's ghost, someone who's used this room and never left. There is no ritual for reclaiming shame in a space built around it. You fold your arms across your ribs, brushing fingers against coarse hair that blankets your arms, hair that wouldn't be visible even a day ago. Every sensation becomes overwhelming. How much exposure can one body bear before the skin becomes raw? Your neighbor at the peg next to you exhales. You don't look, but you feel it, soft and confrontational. Someone is near. Someone is there. You wait for them to leave. The pause stretches. Then, without ceremony, they do. Barefoot, quiet, leaving behind their olive-stained linen. The cloth lands with a small whisper, a tiny confession, and you close your eyes for a moment to steady your pulse. With slow resolve, you bend to retrieve your undergarment. Each fold of linen feels heavier now, soaked with the air's humidity and your sense of vulnerability. You shake it out and wrap it around your waist, tying it with careful knots. It clings, kind of lace and kind of lifeline. You pull the cloth up your torso, across your shoulders, and when the linen settles, you sense, vaguely, a return of propriety, or at least a fragile approximation. You step back from the peg and lean your hip against the wall to support your weight. You breathe out slowly and close your eyes. You listen. A slow drip by the door, the scrape of sandal leather on stone from another arriving, the dull thrum of distant voices that make their way through thick walls. There are layers here, more than just smell or air or water. There are layers of presence, of decisions made before you arrived, of routines that forget you, of cold comforts dressed up as necessities. Your stomach stirs. You realize you're hungry, but it's not the empty ache of need. It's the slow burn of awareness. You're not supposed to feel hunger here. You're supposed to feel peace, calm, serenity. Instead, you feel exposed, unsettled, strangely homesick in a place built to preserve public repose. The torch beside you flickers again, and a curled drop of wax slides down its side. A small river of hardened warmth that pauses at the bottom, then gives way to another drop. You realize you're watching instead of breathing. You draw in a breath, new and shaky, and hold it. A goat would fare better, you think, as ridiculous as that seems. Even a goat knows when to step into the sun and find warmth over forced ceremony. But here you are, in a chamber designed to convince you calm is possible if you only fit in. Fit is what you are now, folded into linen and expectation and silence, fitting in, but never truly belonging. You stand straight, gray shadows flickering over your skin, and feel your back press flat against the wood panel. Behind you is everything you've taken off. In front lies only uncertainty. But in this haze of heat and wet fabric, you find your spine lengthening. A quiet tether between the tag peeled from your tunic and your shadow in the torchlight. You inhale once more, slow and deliberate, trying to pull the room into you and then let it go. You steady your legs, and with measured steps, You place your feet onto the cool stone that leads toward the next chamber. You are slipping forward in the ritual sequence and into whatever awaits. Hotter air, sharper scrapes, brine and trembling. But for this moment, this pale moment of linen and stillness, you are clothed again. You are whole enough to continue. Your footsteps are quiet as you cross the threshold. Beyond it, the echo of water sloshing in the calidarium waits. Hotter rooms beckon with their own demands. You don't rush. You pad forward slowly, letting the door yaw with a soft creak. And then, silence again, thick with the promise of deeper discomfort. You step forward into the inner courtyard, the threshold to the calidarium yawning ahead of you like a silent warning. Your feet scrape the stone with a gentle thud. For a heartbeat, you feel relief that you remembered to slip back into your sandals before abandoning the changing room, the thin leather straps settling snugly across your arches. But the relief is fleeting. Already, the ambient warmth begins to press in, reminding you that here, even something as sacred as a sandal is vulnerable. The courtyard walls rise around you, mottled with lichen and haze. Marble columns line the perimeter, their surfaces worn smooth by centuries of hands seeking support or warmth. Between them, pools ripple, steam dancing over their edges like restless spirits. You choose a spot beside one, squat to untie the straps, and push your feet free of the leather loops. A final flick of your toes sends them into the soft cushion of scattered leaves that cling to the stone. You stand barefoot, the coolness lapping at your soles, a modest comfort after the heat of what came before and what lies ahead. That's when you realize the sandals are gone. It happens with the softness of a passing breeze. You look down to see empty space where leather and sole once met your feet. The straps are curled at the edge of the mosaic, as though your sandals ghosted into absence rather than being removed with intent. You crouch, heart drumming a little as you think through your options. The straps are there, but no soles, or perhaps vice versa. A child's game, a benign theft, or something else. Barefoot, you take a careful step forward. The stone beneath is slick, worn unevenly by moisture and frequent washing. Your toes grip, white-knuckled, as you shift your weight to explore texture and depth you never noticed while wearing shoes. Each ridge and groove presses into your soles, making every footfall a conscious act. You try to recall if there were children running past, or an unattended basket, a stooped figure hovering near the sandals. But your mind only registers the flicker of steam, the echo of distant slosh, and the noses of other bathers turning toward distant noises that may or may not exist. Already, the act of retrieving footwear feels elaborate, implausible. You step away from where you left them behind and try to continue toward the next chamber. But each step on marble is now a negotiation between balance and uncertainty. The stones slope toward shallow pools, each edge gleaming wet. When you touch one, your heel gins an inward slip before your toes curl, catching you. You pause, pulse slowing again. Not because of fear exactly, but because you recognize the equation. Every step forward is a risk. Marble was never meant for bare feet, especially those unused to texture. Around you, other bathers move with easy assurance. Soldiers, merchants, senators, each wearing some form of sandal or slip-on. A merchant with a goatskin bucket stands nearby. The goat sniffs the air, perhaps curious, perhaps indignant. Your heart clenches slightly. The goat, at least, knows when something is off. You notice how your feet feel, cold where muscle should reside, overly warm where moisture pools between toes. You flex each toe, testing your supposed arch, and realize you haven't felt your feet this much in years. They have done their job without notice, until now, when deprivation highlights their absence. You could go back. There is no rule saying hot-footed bathers can't return to the changing room, but to go backward is to admit defeat. And besides, retrieving sandals does not guarantee they will still exist. They could be stuffed inside a basket, or fastened to a child's ankle, or simply taken. Your shoes are not a thing of nobility. They are modest and work-worn, bearing salt stains and weed resin from dusty roads. Their loss stings because there are no replacements here. You stand still for a long moment and become aware of damp air breathing around you. You inhale and taste the moisture, salty, faintly chalky, with an undernote of the earth that lies beneath all of Rome. Your skin prickles again, at first from discomfort, then from awareness that this spot is your decision point. You could walk barefoot further into the sequence, into hotter ground, steam, and stranger apologies. But you could also return, extend the day, risk more scrutiny or worse. Chase after certainty in the assembly of strangers. Your foot slips slightly again, the world righting you with soft pressure. You steady your pulse and take another step next to the mosaic's edge. A drop of warm water splashes your heel. You remain still for a moment, convinced you'll feel the burn of water that hot. But it remains lukewarm. The steam has not quite enveloped you yet. You're at the edge of comfort, edge of ruin. You lift one foot and then the other, each landing firm and careful, stride controlled. A dance of equilibrium unfolding in slow motion, performed only for you. There is no audience here, no judge, just your own flesh realizing its boundaries, its pulse, its limits. You pass a column and see the goat again. It bleats softly, a low sound, odd for the bathhouse backdrop. Its eyes flick toward your feet, as if assessing whether it should intervene. But it does not. It returns to sniffing the air, and you exhale a laugh you can't quite feel. Your feet are now wet beneath the ankles, the harsh towel dry in the prior room, not enough to keep them dry. Beads of water cling between toes. You pause again, leaning back into the warmth of courtyard air that brushes your spine like assurance. In this tiny moment, you accept the situation. Your sandals have left you, but your feet, the living conduits of sensation, remain. And they are telling you everything you need to know. You could walk back, risk sparking a transaction over wooden footwear, invite judgment or pity or worse. Or you can step forward, deeper into vulnerability, deeper into an environment that already shrugs at missing sandals. You inhale again, filling your chest with steam-soft moisture and the faint tang of olive-infused oil rising from nearby pools. You find your balance and move deliberately toward the next corridor. Under your feet, the stone tilting forward, into the next stage. The goat's bleat dims behind you. Water drips softly from overhead eaves. Marble glimmers as though alive. Barefoot, you continue. You step forward from the threshold, leaving behind the cool relief of the courtyard and entering the tepidarium, where warmth wraps around you slowly, like a damp blanket tossed over tired bones. The air shifts immediately. It is neither cold nor hot, but hangs between both, soup-like and ungenerous. The kind of warmth that presses into your lungs and settles there with sticky complaint. You inhale deliberately, trying to find a rhythm, but the air resists. It slurs around your nostrils, reluctant to be expelled again. Your chest tightens, chestnut heavy, as if each breath draws in someone else's sigh, someone else's sweat, someone else's sighing regret. The floor beneath your feet shifts from slick stone to patterned mosaic, tiny tesserae pressed together like imperfect teeth. Each one is aged, dull, rounded, soft-edged, barely distinct. When you walk, your soles brush against them unevenly. One foot catches a raised bit, and you startle slightly, more from the surprise than discomfort. Your toes curl for purchase, rediscovering muscles you forgot existed. You shift your weight, slow, careful, as though the ground is alive and might bite. The space is large, vaulted overhead, arched marble ceiling with carved friezes so water-stained that the stories they once told have run off, leaving only whispers of animals. Now, they're just shapes in shadow. The torchlight flickers low, reflecting off damp walls and pooling across the floor. Light puddles ripple, broken by passing bathers, and then reassemble in odd shapes, like troubled reflections in a dark lake. The first sensation is damp heat on your skin. Not steam. Steam would have force, nuance, a purpose. This is dead air, as if the room has existed in this state for years and has finally given up. It's thick enough to rub against you, like brushing against a wet wool cloak that hasn't been aired in weeks. Your breath feels heavier, each inhale a chore. You brace your hands against the cold wall for balance, fingertips grazing moisture-slick stone. It brings a flicker of relief, a contrast you welcome. The wall is colder than the puddles gathering at your feet, colder than your own damp skin. You move slowly, arms lifting slightly, as if to let the air flow between ribs and limbs. Each step carries a wet slap, the floor resisting dryness. You notice the quiet, not absolute but calm. Water sluicing from unseen drains, low friction of cloth on stone, the soft exhale of hurried breath. In this hush, textures demand attention. Slick leather straps clinging to damp skin, coarse linseed cloth of the loincloth sticking in unwilling folds, the sanded grit between toes. A man sits across the room, shoulders bowed, opponent to the weight of climate and expectation. You don't look at his face. Faces are unnecessary distractions here, but catch the rhythm of shoulders raising and falling with each breath. You feel your spine mirror him unconsciously, aligning with discomfort. Around him, others squat or slouch, some tightly gripping the edges of cold benches to anchor themselves in place. A goat somewhere in the corner coughs softly, its bleat lost in the slosh of distant water, but presence remains, stubborn, solitary. You attempt to reach a bench, toe sliding, muscle memory kicking in. The stiffness in your knee protests your movement. You wonder if you overdid it yesterday. Maybe you pulled a muscle banking the fire at home. Maybe you'll pay now. The bench is marble, smooth and oppressive. You press your palm into it and feel your hand stick, as if attempting to grab onto stability that will dissolve under pressure. You sit, and your body groans in unison with the architecture, your spine pressing against unyielding stone. You shift until you find a dent in the surface, a small dip formed over time by hundreds of bodies settling into the same spot. You sink hips and thighs slowly, like a lentil into soup, your skin cooling only where it touches stone and nowhere else. Everywhere else, moisture clings and light glistens. Your skin feels wet on the edges, with pockets of dryness at your ribs, undersides of arms, areas not yet touched by tepid murk. The exhale that follows your sit-down is not relief. It is defeat. Heat and humidity and dampness and embarrassment. Those four settle around your ribcage like anxious fingers. You place a hand there and find your skin is damp, hair darkened where moisture gathers. You try to wipe, a futile gesture. The towel is back in the changing room, left behind in that moment of haste and fear. You begin to wonder what else you might have left behind. Your hands slide across the bench's surface, cool, smooth, sending pitches of comfort against the warmer air. The friction is enough to make you aware of texture, if not ease. You hold on for a moment, close-eyed, absorbing texture like a sacrament. The bench fights back. It's cold where your hand rests, slowly drawing warmth from your skin. You feel your body start to reclaim heat, a faint tremor in your fingers. Warmth overcomes cold, slowly, without invitation. Your nostrils pick up a new note. Something sweet? Floral? Probably not. More likely it's residue of oil washed down drain, mingling with water and human odor to produce false rose. The effect is disorienting. You inhale, and something about the florals brightens the oppressive gray, forestalling collapse by minutes rather than seconds. You're aware of your weight on the bench again, shifting forward, adjusting hips, sliding knuckles to fingertips, noticing how skin glistens and dries only to glisten again. You're aware of your breathing, of the way your chest expands as humidity pushes resistance into lungs. You inhale again, seeking cleaner air, but finding only the swamp in your lungs. A swamp with no trees, just stone and human warmth and anticipation of the rooms ahead. In front, a wall niche holds a shallow pool of water, cool to sight, but not reducing the air's blanket. Another bather dips a fingertip in and licks it. It's salty, faintly metallic, like someone walking barefoot across a battlefield after rain. You touch your fingertip to your lips, taste the same. You could sip more, but you don't. The water is communal. Your lips might carry another's regrets or gossip, so you reserve thirst in your throat, damp with unanswered longing. You notice how light travels here. It doesn't reach. Not really. It stops at the entrance to the next room, your intended destination, and pools there in pale amber. Beyond lies the calidarium, where flames heat the stones, and air will crackle. You imagine walking into it, feeling the sponge of heat compress further around you. You imagine your sweat pooling in new patterns, dribbling down your elbows. You imagine waves of warm water against your skin, sticky, unkind. You close your eyes and shift weight again, leaning back into the crease of bench. Your spine curves to match hollow in stone. Your head tilts until you feel a small draft at your neck, where marble edge meets plaster. The draft sends gooseflesh down your spine, a reminder that even heat can carry cold. Your bones register the contrast, cold bite beneath heat maelstrom. Your teeth clench for a moment, not from tension, but reaction. The paradox of climate, the warp in expectation. You came for cleansing. Instead, you find discomfort, confusion, awareness. Your stomach stirs. You feel hunger again. A growling in ribcage? No, a dryness reminding you that in the far chamber, water awaits. You swallow, taste dust and sweat in your mouth. You push yourself into a sitting posture. Elbows rest on thighs. Your gaze lifts, scanning for a familiar peg or sign of departure. Instead, your eyes land on the goat again, just beyond your periphery. It licks the wall, tongue brushing stone. It is unrushed, unafraid. It has no reason to be here, except curiosity or orphaned arrival. You envy it. Your foot slides against the bench. The marble hums in silent welcome. You flex at the ankle, feel muscles awaken. Without thinking, you glance at the floor. Where the bench edge meets the mosaic, weeds grow faintly in cracks, tiny green threads against despairing stone. They remind you that even this place cannot fully suffocate growth. Even here, slight expansion is possible, however damp and slow. Your chest rises and falls more smoothly. Breathing becomes a ritual of resistance. You hold inhale, count heartbeats, then exhale. You realize tear might come, but not yet. You shift forward again, hand on thigh, breath sucking moisture from the air in small increments. You begin to feel something not entirely despair, quiet endurance, dull acceptance. Steam drifts in from the calidarium door, a soft current, carrying promise and threat. It drips condensation on your hair, spots your skin with glistened beads. You feel them trace your temples, then pool at your hairline. It cools, for a second. Lovely. But the breath force of steam presses in again. Your toes grip mosaic. You flex them again and again, like reaffirming with each movement. You are still here. You are still breathing. You are still resisting. You remain. You breathe. You feel. You endure. Eventually, the bench's cool shifts to warmth under your thigh. You sense your body acclimating. You sense emotional resilience forming around memories you don't want to keep. You sense that maybe, just maybe, this is not torture. Not yet. It is a test. But even tests end. Your bare feet shift. You push off the bench slowly. Calves flex. Knees rise. You step forward, first foot, then the next, back across slick floor, toward the archway that beckons you with its shimmering promise of flame and deeper warmth. Your breath slows. Your heart reclaims a calmer rhythm. You leave the swamp of air behind, or at least you try. The calidarium awaits. You slip through the narrow doorway from the tepidarium, leaving behind its swamp-thick air. But stepping into the next space brings no relief. You are immediately swallowed by warm light and the overbearing echo of voices. The room opens before you, a shallow amphitheater of stone benches wrapping around a central space where men linger, lounging and gesturing, their forms softened by mist. A single figure dominates the soundscape. A man, tall and gaunt, his arms waving like broken wings, quoting Seneca in a booming rasp that ricochets off stone pillars. You cannot be certain what phrase from ancient wisdom he's reciting, but you feel every syllable press into your lungs. Your sandals, still missing, left you barefoot and vulnerable earlier. Now your bare feet press against this smooth marble, cool and slick with moisture from the steamy corridors you've traversed. Each step slides slightly, forcing you to walk sideways, a slow, deliberate shuffle so as not to jolt your ankles or your pride. You want to sink into a bench and disappear, but the unrelenting orator fills the space like incense smoke, seeping into every corner and refusing to settle. You find a spot, low on a bench just beyond reach of his gestures, and ease yourself down. Your back presses into the cool stone. You can feel the moisture there, windows of chill in a sea of damp warmth. Your lungs still resist. Seneca's voice in your ears doesn't help. His words echo, carry, ricochet, dominate. You feel less like part of the bathhouse and more like an unwilling audience at a brutal revival of existential angst. Your chest tightens slightly each time his voice crescendos. You shift your body to relieve the tension. Your palm skims the bench's surface, cool, oily, slick with residue from others. You sense the texture shifting beneath your skin, like slipping from focus to fog and back again. The orator's volume prompts muscle memory. Shoulders rise. You breathe shallowly, expecting thunderous insight, but it never lands. It is rhetoric without rest, cadence without calm, a relentless drip of human conviction in a place built around surrender. You close your eyes, attempting to let the sensation of marble anchor you instead of his declamation. You focus on the dampness pressing into the small of your back, the low hum of footsteps on wet stone beyond the circle of light, and the slow drip of water from a bronze spout you can barely see. Somewhere beyond, a goat snorts softly, whether from irritation or just digestive distress you cannot tell, but its presence grounds you. The goat, at least, is not constantly elevating ancient wisdom at a volume that could peel paint. Your ears ache slightly from Seneca's emphasis as you imagine his words reverberating into the thick ceiling above. Something within you recoils at the exhaustion of thought stretching out like this. There is a fatigue that washes through you, not from exertion, but from overstimulation. The bathhouse has become a theater for mental exhaustion. You inhale and feel grit between your teeth, the remnants of the frigidarium's pool still clinging to your mouth. Your gaze drifts downward, and you see small droplets collecting on your thighs, your knees, evidence of your own humidity sheen. Slowly, drip by drip, your body leaks moisture. You wipe your hand across your thigh and feel cloth rubbing wet, dry, sticky, wet again. You shift to your other side, lifting hips just enough to let the moisture puddle, ironically, on the marble grooved into a channel. The channel catches the moisture, routing it away. Efficiency you'd rather not think about. Behind you, voices murmur, half-lulled bathers drifting in contentment, some titters escaping when Seneca's recitation drowns and a punchline of old age sneaks out. You startle slightly and exhale, the unexpected human laughter a welcome rupture in the solemn atmosphere. A goose-step heel strikes the stone, so gentle you realize it's just someone rising to leave. They pass behind you, shifting the humidity slightly as they go. A gust of warm air brushes your neck. reminding you how constantly you are encountering temperature's tyranny. You tighten your core, fighting the urge to shudder. You remind yourself that this bathhouse is a sequence. Not all of it is meant to comfort you. Some of it is designed to break you. You wonder if the orator knows. You hope not. He'd probably attribute your discomfort to moral weakness. Seneca would approve, he'd say, but all you want is cool air and a quiet place to settle. Your hands rest on your knees. Fingers curl slowly. Arch, release. You feel each joint loosen. The tension drawn out of your shoulders spreads outward like tanning lines under the sun's heat. You allow your posture to curl, to slump, but hold your head elevated. No drooping before Seneca's heft. Your chestnut collarbone dampens with warm bead sweat. The moisture trails down your sternum. It is maddening how aware you are of each bead. You press your palm onto the bare skin, cold on warm contrast. A jolt of sensation balanced so fragilely, it gives you space from the recitation overhead. You inhale, and the scent of olive oil and salted water fills your nose. Sweetly resinous, heartily familiar. You imagine pulling that aroma into your lungs and letting it blanket you like a lullaby. Your toes twitch, just slightly. You realize the marble is pressing so gently on them that each shift sends goose flesh along your ankle bones. Marble hugs, stone presses, but warmth remains in breathless drips. The orator's voice dips. Perhaps he takes a breath. You cannot tell. It's constant. A mantra without melody. A mantra for someone else's discipline, not yours. Your eyelids feel heavy. The dampness of yourself weighs them down. They are sticky like painted wood in the rain. Still, you fight. You let your eyelashes droop just a little. You let the bench cradle your spine's curve. You let the steam settle again, lull you almost into acceptance. You become aware of time passing, though precisely how much has escaped you. You glance to your left and see movement, not from the orator, but from another man, bent and breathing steady, absent of flourish. He rinses himself with thin streams of water from a clay vessel, splashing onto skin and watching it bead, watching it roll off. You envy that purpose of motion, not performance, but ritual. You reach for the same clarity and miss. Your hand hovers over your knee, and your fingers brush dampness instead. You wipe it off, inhale disappointment. You slide slowly to your left, searching for a bench dip, a small hollow you haven't claimed yet. Your weight shifts to one hip, then the other. You pause for breath and listen. The orator continues, a sonorous pitch, rising, falling. There is passion behind it. You sense it, but it doesn't change the air. You remain sweating, remaining still, remaining present to damp flesh, slick benches, pressure of marble. The goat returns. Its hooves tap a distant stone step. It woofs, a pitying sound, as if weighing the man's words in the universe's ledger and deciding they are far too loud. You release a smile that collects in the space between tissues and moisture. Slight, slow, resigned. You don't smile back, but it doesn't matter. Something about the goat's indifference triggers a ripple of irony in your soul. You imagine you smile because here, amid chanting and domes and soapless rituals, you are still capable of noticing small absurdities. Your back presses fully into marble again. You feel its cold exhale. You savor it. It anchors them and anchors you. You close your eyes longer this time. You let every sense slow, tongue sliding across saliva-slick palate, fingertips touching cold stone, lungs drawing in steam and letting go. You feel solid here, if only as an act of defiance. The orator suddenly crescendos again, hands stabbing at air, voice roaring over shepherds and emperors. You inhale too deeply, but this time prepare. The air enters your lungs unevenly, rice grain warm, and you let it remain. You hold it, and then slowly, slowly, you exhale, letting it pass, a token of endurance. Silence, or close enough, ensues. The echo of words evaporates. You wait, anchored in damp marble, like an artifact left to soften in humidity. Your eyelids drift shut fully, only one at first, then the other. You soften into the marble dip, spine curved just so, fingers relaxed on thighs. You let yourself sway too slightly, eyelids fluttering back. You keep steady. You hold. In that hush, between breaths, between recitation and echo, you find a breath of peace, like a hidden chamber behind a waterfall. You think of the cool courtyard sun. You remember it. You draw it into your mind's eye. Dry, dust-laced air, midday clarity. You hold it in one hand mentally, and your other hand remains open, resting on marble. The goat bleats again, soft, not from irritation, but a reminder. Life, small and undramatic, persists within grandeur. It is unclouded, uncomplicated. It is real. The orator starts again. A phrase emerges, heavier. You inhale a brittle draft of anticipation, but you no longer listen. The bowl of your ignorance still feels like relief. You open your eyes. The goat is gone, just a smear of thought at the edge of your vision. The bathers shift, voices low. Seneca continues. You take a deep, steady breath. You release it. Your heart's rhythm is calm despite the din. You rise with grace born of decision. Sweat-slicked palms sliding off marble bench, toes curling for balance. You stand with your own quiet authority, mind stressed, lungs heavy, flesh damp, soul steadied, if only a fraction. You step forward, barefoot, leaving the philosopher's theater behind as motion presses forward. Onward to the fiery calidarium, where heat will test new limits. Each step is deliberate, slow, measured. You feel your feet again. They remember balance. They remember friction. They remind you, the bathhouse is not yet done with you, but neither are you done with it. You leave behind the lecture hall of thighs and philosophy, where Seneca's voice still trails and echoes across wet stone. Your ears are relieved, but your skin is less lucky. There is no break, no corridor of fresh air or moment of calm. The air grows thicker before it grows hotter. The moisture clings tighter. Your footfalls now feel as if you're moving through soup, not space. You do not so much walk into the calidarium as sink into it, like falling into a simmering bowl of broth someone has already bathed in, steeped in eucalyptus leaves, disappointment, and the back sweat of half the city. You pause at the threshold because something in your bones protests. The air is visibly shimmering. The stone beneath your bare soles radiates a warning. There is a heat here that's not merely hot. It's contemplative. It wants you to think long and hard about your choices, especially the one that brought you to this room. The calidarium, you were told, is the climax of the bathhouse experience. That feels correct in the way an avalanche is the climax of a gentle snowfall. You cross the threshold anyway, because it is what's expected, and because turning back would mean navigating past the philosopher again. The doorframe feels like the lip of a volcano, and you are not prepared. Your entire body revolts in stages. First, your nostrils flare. The air is so hot you can smell your own nose hairs curling. Then your eyelids attempt retreat. The steam burns even through the lash line. And then your skin. All of it. Every inch. It prickles with sensation. Not pain. Not yet. But an anticipation of pain. As if your entire body is being politely informed that it will be melting shortly. And could it kindly prepare for that? You inhale, because to do otherwise would be to suffocate, and the breath scalds the inside of your throat. The heat doesn't enter you. It becomes you. It wraps itself around your ribcage, tucks itself beneath your tongue, and slinks down the back of your spine like hot oil poured too generously. The room is dim, but the kind of dim that feels hostile. The only illumination comes from flickering oil lamps tucked into alcoves, casting light like ghost fire, faint, amber, and wholly insufficient. The steam diffuses the glow into a soft, oppressive blur. You cannot see the ceiling. You suspect it's up there, somewhere above the fog, but it feels like the room ends just above your head, like you're in a poorly ventilated bread oven that's been weeping. You move forward because your body is still technically upright. Each step is like pushing through hot porridge. Your thighs stick together. Your arms cling to your sides. Your toes grip the floor for traction, but the stone is slick, and your balance feels more ceremonial than reliable. Your skin doesn't so much sweat as exhale everything it's ever held. The rivulets of moisture forming behind your ears, beneath your knees, under your arms. They are the closest thing you've had to clarity all day. There are others in here, of course. Bathers who seem unconcerned with the heat, as if their internal organs have been trained for it. One man lies across the bench like a sun-drunk lizard, eyes closed, limbs splayed, his entire body shimmering with condensation. Another sits upright with unnatural poise, his back so straight he must be in pain, which you assume is the point. And then, of course, the large man. He notices you. Not just notices, registers your presence. His head swivels toward you with the slow inevitability of doom. You can feel his gaze settle on you like a damp woolen tunic. He smiles. It is the kind of smile that suggests both kindness and mischief. You do not trust it. He scoots closer on the marble bench, the sound of flesh on stone making a sound that should not be echoed in a sacred space. He holds something in one meaty hand. A loofah, you think, though it looks more like a weaponized vegetable. He gestures. You interpret the gesture as an offer, or a command. Either way, your instincts suggest submission. You attempt to sit. This is a mistake. The marble bench, already heated from below, has been further seasoned by the dozens of people who have rested on it before you. It sears the backs of your thighs instantly. You yelp, quietly, reverently, and lift yourself just enough to hover, suspended between posture and survival. Your dignity disintegrates like soap in hard water. The large man hands you the loofah. It is dripping. It smells faintly of herbs, strongly of mildew, and overwhelmingly of man. You hold it in both hands, unsure of the etiquette. Do you scrub yourself? Offer to scrub him? Throw it across the room and run? There is no rule book, only sweat and consequence. You begin to rub your forearm cautiously. The loofah is scratchy, less sponge, more barnacle. It catches every hair, every pore, every lingering doubt about your presence here. You wince. You continue. The steam continues to press into your chest with each breath, and your heartbeat becomes audible inside your skull. Someone hums nearby, a low, tuneless thing, like a kettle preparing to scream. It adds to the atmosphere, part spa, part purgatory. The room is timeless. You have been here for 10 minutes or a century. There is no difference. The light does not change. The air does not cool. The humidity does not relent. A drop of sweat slides down the middle of your back and pauses just above the waistband of your loincloth. It clings there, mocking you. You do not have the energy to reach it. It will evaporate before it falls, or be absorbed into the bench, or simply decide to reverse course. None of these outcomes brings comfort. The man beside you exhales loudly, like an ox releasing a confession. You nod politely. He stretches, then begins rubbing oil into his own shoulders. Not olive oil in the sense of salad dressing, but the kind that smells like medicinal regret. It shines on his skin like varnish. He looks like a lacquered pig, freshly basted. You are grateful he has not offered to share. The loofah, now damp and useless, slips from your hand and lands with a soft plop on the floor. You leave it there. It has served its sentence. You focus instead on remaining conscious. Your fingertips are pruny. Your vision is slightly blurred. The air tastes of metal. You cannot recall what it feels like to be dry. Somewhere above, the condensation gathers and drips from the ceiling. A drop lands on your shoulder. a tiny explosion of cold in a world of heat. You flinch. You savor it. You consider leaving. Your knees argue. Your spine mutinies. Your internal organs file complaints. You do not stand. You do not move. You are suspended in discomfort, preserved in steam, as vulnerable as a dumpling in a bamboo basket. The room groans. A pipe, a stone, a ghost. Something old and tired shifts in the walls. You wonder if the calidarium itself is alive, if the bathhouse breathes with you, exhales when you do. It feels personal. It feels indifferent. The man beside you coughs once, loudly, then sighs. You are reminded that this is communal, no matter how intimate the misery feels. You are not alone in this suffering. There is solidarity and mutual roasting. You lean forward. It takes effort. Your muscles resist, as if fused by heat and apathy. Your feet find the floor. You stand, barely. Your skin peels slightly from the bench with a sound that should never be repeated. The large man nods at you again, his expression unreadable. You incline your head in return, not in respect, but in exhausted acknowledgement. You survived. Barely. The path forward is unclear, obscured by fog and uncertainty. But you move anyway, because there is always another room, another ritual, another discomfort waiting to be endured. As you shuffle toward the next chamber, your body trailing steam like an overcooked vegetable, you hear a faint squelch behind you, the sound of someone else sitting where you sat, beginning their own descent. You do not look back. The steam thins slightly ahead, revealing a doorway. Beyond it, you sense a shift, not in temperature, but in intimacy. Something oilier, slinkier, stranger. You press onward, and somewhere, through the mist, the scent of fennel begins to rise. You step forward from the scorching clutch of the calidarium, your skin still humming with residual heat and clingy steam, into a space that feels almost softer, less furnace than den. The air's warmth is no longer violent, but generous, soothing, like a damp wool blanket draped across the shoulders after a scare. Your eyes adjust to the gentle haze, and for a moment you believe perhaps you might be immune, that you might even find relief. But the second your bare foot meets the floor, you feel the slick, oily residue from earlier visitors, an unwelcome reminder that this place exists not for your comfort, but for endless cycles of exposure and recovery. In the hush of expectation, a man approaches from the right, not with words or invitation, only with hands. His stride is calm, deliberate, and you are immediately aware not of his face, but of the slight brush of motion, the almost imperceptible scent of fennel oil carried on his breathless exhale. There is no choice in this. You do not ask who he is. You do not offer consent. His palms press onto your temples first, firm yet strangely tentative, as though they are both assessing terrain and claiming it. You close your eyes, trying to remember what the world felt like before you stepped into communal bathing rituals. Your skin, slick still from steam, gives way under those palms. You sense fingertips exploring clavicles and shoulders, tracing the tension left behind by inhospitable heat. You tilt your head just enough to grant access, both token submission and quiet rebellion. The oil arrives in thick ribbons, dripping from a clay vessel into the gap where neck and shoulder meet. It's warm, not hot, but coaxingly so, and it pools with a hunger that surprises you. It consumes the moisture on your skin. You feel it absorb, smell the richness of olive and earth blending with your own residual sweat. Each drop is weighty, deliberate. You try to ignore the stranger's fingers nudging the oil over dusty patches of skin, seeking dryness, filling it. Your hair, already damp, becomes an oil-slick halo at the nape of your neck. You sense the hair strand by strand clumped together under the slow cascade. It feels like a betrayal, every strand surrendering. Yet you remain still, body pressing into the cool marble bench behind you. The surface is more forgiving now, coaxed to warmth by your earlier presence, and it offers a steady anchor as foreign hands roam. You can't name the direction his hands travel, and that disorientation, this loss of control, settles into your spine. Your fingers dig lightly into the bench's edge, nails grazing stone. You grip until your palm sticks slightly, like clay, then release. The skin on your palm reddens under friction and moisture, yet you don't flinch. The oil trickles down your shoulder blade, painting a slick sheen that glints even through steam. Your chest tightens slightly, but not from anxiety. Instead, it's awareness, a reminder that you are alive. Your skin capable of sensation despite everything the baths have thrown at you. Oil pools in the hollows of your collarbones and drips into the valley between ribs. You wonder if it lubricates your bones as well as your skin, softening the lines where flesh meets bone. His fingers move lower, across your upper arms, trailing toward your elbows. It's methodical. Apply, rub, spread, release. And still you do not speak. There is no ritual to protest. The bathhouse has its own logic. Power and passivity wobble in endless sway between you and this man. At some point your arms are held aloft, weighted with oil, as your torso pivots slightly, exposing the flank of your ribs. Gravity asserts itself. The oil skitters downward, pooling at the waist. He circles around. You sense the shift before you feel the air move, piercingly cool compared to your soaked warmth. Your body shivers, not from cold, but from reorientation. You feel him press oil into your lower back, fingertips working with finesse and quiet insistence. Fingertips brushing along vertebrae you didn't know could register sensation so keenly. A drop of oil escapes his fingers, sliding near your hip. You resist the impulse to wipe it away, watching it slip toward the bench. Your inner thigh hums, vulnerable, surprised. You shift subtly, trying not to draw attention to yourself, but aware every motion maps your body's geography in oil and air. You realize how exposed you are, stripped not by clothes but by rituals designed to erode boundaries. And yet, the oil is oddly comforting, smoothing skin roughened by steam and scrape. It is both balm and betrayal. Behind you, the bench drips. Tiny streams wander off the marble edge onto the mosaic floor, where they join the network of moisture beneath everyone's feet. Someone else is slathered at a similar pace somewhere off to your left. Quiet murmur of skin, drip of oil, exhalation that sounds like surrender. Your mind drifts. You remember mornings back home when you tended fire in your hearth, coaxing flame from kindling, banking embers, pressing your palms to warmth. This oil baptism, is like being kneaded by smoke and sheen. It goes deeper. It sees deeper. You imagine that even your thoughts might slick themselves into new shapes, more slippery, less defined. You may be altered by this. The stranger's hands move upward again, brushing your neck, then smoothing across the echoing swell of your cheeks and jawline. You feel his breathing, a gentle exhale at your hairline. Perhaps he is inhaling the saffron scent of your skin infused with oil. You inhale too, a breath laden with perfume and wet stone and steam. You taste salt. His work slows and then halts. A drop of withered oil falls from your earlobe. You let it. You do not move. You do not think of trashing clothing once you leave. You do not think of the wary glance at the changing room. You simply allow the stillness, the warmth, the slow glow of connection, unasked but not wholly rejected. The man steps away. You remain seated, still dripping, still warm, still unsettled. He doesn't look back. He disappears into the haze, leaving you with your skin glazed like pottery. You press a palm across your chest and it sticks. You press again and lift. You leave a clear print of moisture behind. It smells of olive and human skin, earthy, intimate, too close. Your shoulders droop. You inhale, and your lungs recognize the weight of oil-laden air. You exhale slowly, You let your fingers follow the traces of oil still clinging to your shoulders. They slide, tracing worn paths, as if reading a map only now revealed. You stand, legs unfamiliar in the slickness. You steady yourself, toes gripping cool stone underfoot. You notice the bench again, cracked in places, old and pollen-soft with accumulated moisture and wear. You place one finger on it. It yields slightly, as if acknowledging you, in return for your sacrifice, your surrender. You begin to move toward the next chamber, chestnut hair and olive sheen glistening in diffusered light. With every footstep you leave behind a trail of oil on the marble floor. It glistens, shining a record of your passage. Awkward, beautiful, embarrassing. Your skin prickles as you walk. Oil is sticky in the wrong places, crucial places. The steam is warm. The corridor echoes with murmurs and dripping water and shared breaths. You feel weightless, yet coated, cleansed, yet caked. You reach the doorway to the strigil ritual. Ahead lies metal scraping and oil removal, an act reversed, almost healing, almost wounding. You pause, the threshold waiting. This is the next step. This is the answer to today's baptism. You inhale, slick lungful of air. You place a palm on the wall, cool, reassuring, and push forward. You do not look back at the oily sheen of your skin or the bruise of exposure it marks. Only forward, deeper and softer, into the strigil's scrape and careful violence that awaits. You step forward from the oil-slicked corridor, feeling the weight of all you carry. Slick skin, lingering warmth, and the faint stain of someone else's breath swirling around your shoulders. You pass into the next room, and the light changes, as if subdued on purpose, dimmed to a glow that breathes alongside the steam drifting into this new chamber. The floor beneath your feet shifts from cold marble to a mosaic flecked with crimson and ochre, worn smooth by countless souls. This space holds the promise of transformation, or unmaking. It smells of metal and furrows of soap residue, levels of dust earned by years of scraping skin. You know what comes next before you see it. The strigil, ancient and silent, waiting for you like a curious instrument of reckoning. It stands on a stone pedestal at the heart of the chamber, long, curved, gleaming dimly in the glow of an oil lamp set low on the floor. The metal is cold before it's touched, shaped to fit a human body like a calloused spoon, polished not for nurture but for efficiency. An edge meant to scrub away layers and linger in hollows thought lost. You stare at it, its shadow stretched along the floor, thin and sharp. You realize with a flicker of panic that this is the moment your skin meets inversion. What was once tender will now be abrasive. What was softened is about to be stripped. Your feet carry you closer, each step measured, mindful of balance. You reach the pedestal and place one palm on its edge, cool, smooth, unforgiving. You feel the pulse of uncertainty ripple through your veins. The mosaic at your feet is fractal, a map of small tiles pressed together like grains of memory. You imagine each tile as a fragment of your day here, all pointing toward the strigil's point. A man emerges from the gloom. You sense him before you see him. Another attendant, familiar now from earlier stages. He holds a clay bowl of pale oil, waiting. His face is hidden in haze, and his presence feels professional, devoid of malice, an operator of ritual more than pain. You nod, though he does not need it. You lower yourself onto the bench positioned beside the strigil's pedestal, legs hanging, toes grazing the floor's warmth. The board beneath shifts in acceptance. You rest your hands on your thighs, slick with oil, heart still racing like brittle pages in a windstorm. He pours more oil across your chest, centerline to sternum, letting it trickle downward as gently as gravity allows. The sensation is familiar now, warm, slippery, clinging. It mixes with the oil already coating you. You breathe it in, letting the scent anchor you as silence stretches between inhale and exhale. You feel the weight of oil refuse to drip down your stomach, and instead settle into the hollows of your skin, pressing your nerve endings gently outward. You tilt your chin up slightly, doors of vulnerability open, but not cracking. The man positions the strigil in front of you, its edge angled. You watch its metal curve reflect flickering flame, like a silver tongue untouched. The metal hovers close enough that you can feel the heat radiating from your body, amplified by its reflection. You feel flinches ripple across your chest, but nothing moves. Stillness in motion, you remind yourself. He sets an arm around your shoulders, steadying you. The weight of his body is unexpected. Warmth at the crook of your shoulder blade. A reassurance that you aren't alone in this. The strigil presses on your upper chest, brim first, almost tender before its scraping begins. The angle shifts. An edge touches your collarbone. You hold breath. A soft rasp echoes through the metal, whispering against your flesh, and then another. You let it happen, your body braced but breathing. The first scrape is slow, an assessment perhaps, gathering its own rhythm in microscopic fragments of oil and skin and time. There is no pain, at least not yet, but breath flutters in your chest as the metal arcs lower, across pectorals, tracing the sinews and hollowing your ribs in striptease of sensation. You hold yourself still, conscious of every fiber. The metal presses, glides, and you sense the presence of the man moving with it, guiding without hurry, cataloging without rush. With each sweep, oil spirals into pools at your waist. Friction gathers warmth. Pressure meets flesh. You focus on friction, on resistance, on each silky gristle peeled away. Not unpleasant, but unnerving in its intimacy. You are both participant and object. You feel the bench beneath you, granular, rough against your slick skin. You feel your pelvis contact its edge and stay there, anchored. Only the top half of your torso vacillates under the strigil's trace. Your breaths deepen. You savor the sound of each scrape, hollow in the hush of the chamber. Someone breathes elsewhere, another soul undergoing the same ordeal. A stray whisper of foam bubbles from elsewhere in the house. The mosaic underfoot waits, patient, gathering all that passes. The metal reaches the arch of your shoulder, a long vertical pull, muscle surrendering. You exhale and feel the air slide down your sternum. You lean slightly into the pressure, a silent communion between blade and flesh. The strigil curves around your shoulder blade. You feel the ridge where bone meets skin. Each sweep is reverent, as though the metal remembers what's under it. It remembers you. A drop of sweat trickles between your shoulder blades. The cold night air outside might have welcomed you hours ago. Now, your spine is slick with removed layers. You shiver, not from cold, but from release. You let your shoulders slump, kneading the sides of your waist as though pulling warmth from within. His hands return to the strigil. The man leans in. You cannot see his face, but you feel his breath, cool, faint, in the steam. The metal tips toward your neck. You stiffen, tempered by muscle memory. It passes over the skin at your throat, gliding with measured pressure. A final sweep near your jaw. You tilt your head back slightly, granting access. Your Adam's apple bobs under the strigil. You feel your pulse there, quickening as your throat yields. The strigil moves again, gliding along your thigh. You feel the slip of your hamstring under it, deeper now. You sense a faint resistance, as though something inside you is being coaxed. Pride. You let it. You exhale. He circles to the front and repeats near the inner thigh, an approach so gentle it almost doesn't register. You notice warmth pool there, pooling oil, accruing heat. A considered pause near your knee before he lifts away, scraping the final trace of residue from your legs. The ritual ends, and yet it feels less like an end than a widening. You lie supine, legs splayed, chest mottled with marks of metal's kiss. You feel raw and renewed. You inhale, deep, steady. You exhale. You notice the room's silence pressing again. The faint drip of water from overhead. A distant goat snort from the yard beyond the baths. He steps back, bowing reverently or disappearing. It doesn't matter. His presence flickers in the stillness. You feel the cool air kiss where oil has been laid bare, friction closed. You sense your heart settling, anchoring in your chest again. Your fingertips trail down your thigh, gathering texture, smooth, slick, softened by ritual. You let your fingertip brush across your ribcage. You feel where the strigil touched, where it lifted pressure from your flesh. You feel tender, yes, but also stronger. When you rise, your muscles pulse alive with feeling, every fiber attuned. The room's air feels lighter now, less oppressive. Your breath comes easily. Your chest lifts. You brush oil along your torso with your own hands, as though sealing the ritual inside you. Your palms glide over your shoulders, smoothing the reflection of heat. The faint stick of oil melds with your skin tone. You feel you have earned it. You stand. The man is gone. The strigil's pedestal is empty, waiting for the next. You step toward the door, feeling the weight of your new skin offer its own reassurance. Beyond is the next room, the frigidarium, a promise of chill, of shock, of contrast. You pause at the doorway, feeling droplets of oil cling at your ankles. You lift a foot, let the drop leap off the edge. A tiny sound, tap, echoes, confirming your passage. You inhale the glacial scent ahead, then exhale softly. You step forward. Beyond awaits ice, breathless and cold. You ease forward from the frigidarium's icy grip, skin still vibrating from the plunge, and enter a quieter vestibule where damp stone arches whisper with collected steam. Warmth presses softly through the vapor, touching the back of your throat and coaxing a cautious hesitation in your chest. It feels like stepping fully back into your own skin, but before you can settle, a new note arrives. A sharp, metallic scent carried on the humid air, pulling your breath inward, registering before you recognize what it is. Moisture glistens between the mosaic tiles beneath your feet, a slick and uneven path shaped by countless footsteps. Your toes arch and grip, seeking purchase on the smooth but forgiving stones. The warm breath of the bathhouse flirts with your lungs, and somewhere in that warmth, an undercurrent of iron threads through, sharp, subtle, persistent. You stand still, body poised like a reed in gentle wind, inhaling slowly, exhaling just as consciously, and then you see him. A man sits on a low stone bench, his torso still glossy with oil or sweat, not sure which, his skin darkening under the soft heat. His head tilts just enough that a single drop of blood collects at a nostril, wavers on his lip, and falls. The sound is oh so soft, a muffled thump against stone, echoing gently in this humid hush. You watch as more drops gather, red punctuation against pale skin, and pool upon the mosaic below. Nearby bathers glance his way, but eyes drift again as though nothing remarkable happened. No one rushes. No one tends. That this is ordinary here strikes you with more force than alarm. The bathhouse is a crucible of flesh and water, where vulnerability seeps into every pore, and blood is just another fluid expected to mingle with oil or sweat. Your chest tightens slightly at recognition, a tender hush echoing between your ribs. The drop breaks its surface, soft plop, and the vestibule absorbs it without fuss. Humid air clings to your damp skin. You realize you're breathing a little shallower now, turning inward in reverence. The mosaic beneath your feet is flecked with red and yellow, small fragments of memory immortalized in stone. You watch as the droplets map across this ancient canvas, breeding quiet patterns that vanish into grout. The scent of iron pulses stronger, richer, more insistent. You breathe in, you hold it, and feel the world settle deeper in your consciousness. Your shoulders relax, your spine elongates. You are present in a shared vulnerability, a moment of unity among hidden lives. Your heart flutters in recognition. You are alive. The scraping of the strigil etched its mark across your chest. Now you witness another mark, flesh meeting fragility. A hum of shared breath fills the gap, your breath tangled with that of distant figures warming in the next chamber, with the pump of water overhead, with the hiss of steam curling along stone. You draw awareness of the vestibule's stillness, the hush that greets drops of blood like a lullaby. Your hand drifts to the wall. Cool marble presses against your palm, smoothed by time and touch. You lean your forehead against it, letting your hair fan softly around your ears. The scent of wet stone mingles with oil, sweat, and midday heat. The world tilts just so. You close your eyes. You press a heel against the floor. You center yourself in this mosaic of bodies and fluids and lives, each breath a tribute. Another figure emerges. A woman stepping quietly through the arch, shoulders bowed, chest pink from heat. She glides past you, and for a heartbeat, your shoulders brush. Heat meets oil slick. Neither of you flinches. You sense her scent, floral cloth, preserved humidity, faint wood smoke. You share a slow nod without speaking, both witnesses to a human tableau in which blood is neither tragedy nor taboo. It is ordinary life pulsing in liquid form. You exhale, fully this time, letting muscles soften across your limbs. You feel the friction in your chest finally release, surrendering to gravity. The man with the nosebleed wipes his face and stands, lingering just long enough for his legs to steady before he drifts away, forward, into steam or shadow, indistinguishable. You notice his calf twitch under the weight of blood loss, the bench drawing the imprint of his body in warmth. You inhale again, slower, feeding on shared flesh and steam. A moisture-laden breeze drifts through an opening somewhere ahead, lifting damp curls around your face. You sense the slow rhythm of the bathhouse, water warming, steam rising, flesh soaking, blood dripping, breath sinking. There is no melodrama. There is only existence, communal and unadorned. Your gaze rests on the mosaic again. Tiny tiles polished into soft gloss, stained deeper now. You trace a fingertip along one, feeling the wear, the centuries. The stone is warm, forgiving. Your fingers linger at the edge of a red tile, imagining fresh blood pooling above. You close your eyes briefly, envisioning the pattern, the pulse, the shared physiology. Your shoulder muscles slacken as another droplet lands near your foot, splaying across the stone. You notice it, feel its weight on your awareness. Your skin still hums with anticipation of what comes next. Scented cloth. The frigidarium sank. Maybe gentle massage or the return of clothes. But you linger here, rooted in presence. The blood reminds you that peeling away oil and flesh is not just physical. It is an internal shedding of illusion. You're learning what falls away and what remains bare and essential. A faint drip echoes from the vaulted ceiling. You follow it with your breath. It descends, hearkens soft release. Your heartbeat echoes in your chest, soft and regular. You press palm against your sternum and exhale again, wider, slower, unconditional. You are alive. You are feeling. You are remembering that bodies bleed, and that is human, ordinary, miraculous. You step forward when you are ready. The metal tang lingers in the air, but you carry it in your lungs now. A step, 2 steps. The mosaic glows faintly under your feet. You are drenched in awareness, steadied by stone, warmed by shared breath, steadied by your own quiet heart. Ahead lies the scented cloth, fraught with rose and cuteness, drenched in pomp. But you leave this vestibule changed, body humbled, presence sharpened. You step into the passage ahead, sound soft beneath you, the next ritual waiting. You ease forward from the dripping vestibule, still pulsing with the scent of iron and steam, and the stone beneath your feet begins to warm once more. The passage leads you toward the next chamber, a place where scents swirl in thick ribbons, unaware of modesty or breath. You step across the threshold, and the air shifts. It wraps around you, not gently, but firmly, like a cloth pulled too tight over damp skin. Your skin tingles from recent treatments. The calidarium's heat, the strigil's scrape, the icy plunge beyond. Oil slicks your pores, and your hair clings in damp strands to your neck. You shift your weight, feeling the tiles beneath your toes, slick but warm, forgiving yet indifferent. You recognize the buzz at your temples, steady and faint, like embers lingering after a fire gone out, and the slow march of fatigue across your back and shoulders. Ahead, an attendant appears, no more than a youth, but sure-handed and unrelenting. Cloth in hand, they drift toward you. The cloth is soaked, heavy, dripping with perfumed solution. Rose water, if the memory of frigidarium flowers holds true. You smell it before you feel it. A sweetness so dense it flattens the air. It tangles with your existing scents. Blood, oil, sweat, stone. And the clash resonates sharply in your nose. It is that moment when you take 3 breaths at once, trying to understand how something so pretty can feel so suffocating. Slowly, methodically, they lift the cloth and bring it toward your face, and you close your eyes because there's nothing to do but accept it. You feel the fabric slap your cheek. The sound is dull in the cavernous room, but there, in the center of your head, it bleeds louder. The rose water seeps into your hairline, drips down your neck, cool and unwelcome. The scent hits your lungs like a question you can't answer. Granted, it is cleaner than oil and steam and damp flesh, but oh, it is too clean, too present, too demanding. You inhale again, rose and regret and regret. Too many regrets to count in this moment of forced clarity. You taste sweetness. You taste contradiction. You taste fatigue deepened into malaise. Your eyelids flutter. The auditorium of the bathhouse hums around you, but in your head, the rose water beckons your awareness into sharp, unwelcome clarity. Your shoulder twitches. The muscles cross-hatched under your skin tighten. You sense patrons nearby. A man stretched into stone, shoulders slack, back still throbbing from strigil punishment. A woman lingering at the edge of the steamy pool, hands pressed to her chest, glimmering droplets across her shoulders. They are here, but their voices have faded. All you see is scented cloth blur, pressing, siding across your cheekbones, wiping away form, and leaving only sensation. A life crisis, you realize, is simply this. The moment your body speaks louder than your mind, and you can't quiet either. The attendant presses the cloth again, lower on your throat, and the weight of it settles into your collarbones. Your collarbones feel bruised from lack of movement, from hours in hot rooms and submersion rituals. You long to rise, to loosen your posture, but you remain still. The scent envelops you completely, heady, floral, impossible to ignore. You can taste it in each swallow of air. You start to note the layers, a top note of rose, a mid of something syrupy, nearly overly sweet, and a base note caught somewhere in the folds, almost like an aftertaste of wax or waxed beeswax. A modern bottle of fine perfume would be envious of this complexity. A modern bottle couldn't handle it without shattering. Your arms slump, heavy. The rose water film begins to mask the slippery sheen of oil. Your skin takes on a strange slickness, like a stone polished by waves, still retaining grit. You feel the heft of your hair, damp and heavy against your nape, and realize recently you forgot that even your hair was there, nature complicating an already suffocating ritual. You close your eyes, pressing one palm to your brow. The heat rises in gentle waves, rattling your breath into soft gasps. The scent presses on your brain as if to announce, this is the part where you reconsider everything. You wish for something neutral, a stone bench, a cool whisper of air, the distant echo of the frigidarium. Anything but this fragrant mask you didn't ask for, but that they're going to enforce with polite sovereignty. The attendant steps back, You blink. The cloth drops into a basin, dripping perfume into water. The faint slap of fabric echoes as it hits tile, sounding heavier than it should. You breathe out slowly. The feeling coils up your spine. Relief. But relief is also a negotiation, memory of tight cloth, of intrusive scent, of chastening calm. You realize you're not the same as a few breaths ago. You have changed shape. Your skin tingles in new places, collarbones still damp, the nape of your neck sticky under its new coat, elbows satin slippered with satin smothered air. You want to brush at your arms, but every marble inch is a part of this ceremony. You stand a breath longer. You taste rose and regret, and maybe something like insight. Your scalp hums. Your gaze drifts to a niche in the wall ahead. Stone arches dripping water. Incense like steam rising from distant pools. Ancient inscriptions modeling the marble. You register the soft footsteps of others. They watch. They wait. They too transform. One scented cloth at a time. A strap of sandal leather rubs your heel. You shift weight to ease it, but the cloth's scent haunts your nose. A quiet understanding settles over you. This ritual is not about cleanliness, not just hygiene. It is an unspoken lesson. Each step removes a piece of pretense, a piece of anonymity, until you're bare, not just physically, but in your anxiety, your self-awareness, your longing for something familiar. You draw a deep breath. The rose scent rattles in your lungs, folds into your exhaustion, and blends into your heartbeat. You feel at once coated and exposed, soft and raw. You sense your own nakedness deeper than before. You sense your vulnerability in the nose of that scented cloth, and you wonder how long you can continue peeling. You wonder at what point nakedness ends and erasure begins. Your foot shifts. You take a step deeper into the chamber. The scent floats out behind you, hovering as a memory. You feel the world loosening. You feel gravity lighten. You feel your tie to this place tighten, and then loosen again, like a strap that draws you toward complexity, then releases you into awareness. The ritual has ended, but its imprint remains. Your throat feels tight, your breath shallow. You might consider pausing here, closing your eyes, leaning your head against the marble dome above, letting the scents echo fade with the steam. You might do that before the next stage claims you. The icy shock of frigidarium's return, or the oddly violent massage that lies beyond, or the clamor of redressing and returning to a world outside. You press a hand to your chest. Feel the rise and fall, smell another breath. Feel raw layers settling into gentle memory. And you step forward, your senses recalibrated, your skin aware, your heart alert, your mind chanting the silent question, do we have to do this every day? The corridor hums around you. Ahead awaits the cold that will shock you awake. You step away from the lingering sweetness of rose-laden cloth, leaving behind its fragrant insistence, and approach the final ritual's threshold, the frigidarium. The hallway narrows, the stone turning cooler beneath your bare feet, and you sense the shift before you see it. A quiet hush, like the world holding its breath. A thin veil of mist rises from the icy pool, drifting over marble edges like ghostly steam in reverse, and the air feels sharper now, as if someone cracked a window in a warm room. The bathhouse exhales. Your heart slows in wary anticipation. The calidarium and tepidarium pressed heat into your pores. The strigil scraped. The rose cloth suffocated gently. And now the ice-lipped breath of the frigidarium draws close. You step in, toes dipping first. A single foot, timid, meets the water. The stone underfoot is slick, its polished grains cold and cruel. You hesitate, barely, but enough, before your calf enters, muscle tightening reflexively. You swallow, your throat drying from shock, and with a deliberate breath, you sink deeper until the water floods your knees, your hips, your chest. It wraps around your body, compressed and unyielding. A gasp is ripped from your chest, long and ragged, a soft plea that reverberates in the moist hush. The cold is an armed presence, each molecule a tiny interrogator pressing on your skin. Not freezing exactly, not yet, but stinging, biting, clenched tight like a shopkeeper refusing to open the till. It presses into your lungs and coils around your ribs, tensing your belly muscles until breathing is a deliberate negotiation. Your ears ring with it, a high note in dampness, and your teeth clatter softly, not from cold teeth, but from a body refusing to calm. And there, beyond the shape of your washer, a figure glides in beside you. An acquaintance of cowhide, a back end of the room face. Doesn't matter. They share your plunge, your discomfort, your moment of willing torment. Your skin prickles, tiny hairs standing on end as if trying to climb into safety. The temperature difference is a conversation between extremes, the heat's memory still simmering beneath your flesh, the cold's demand probing deeper. You stand, chest deep, heart pounding a staccato rhythm, each beat a soft resistance to numbness. Your breath clouds in the air above your mouth like smoke from a sleepy forge, rising, then dissolving. You hold your breath, then exhale, then catch another, the cold enveloping each inhale like an uninvited guest. Your calves burn, your thighs ache, your arms float, weighed down by wetness and deep unspoken questioning. You taste something in the water, metallic, faint, perhaps drift from the pipes or small debris from the frigidarium's past. Or maybe it's your own blood, surfaced from tiny fractures in skin or effort. You shift your weight again, sliding marginally. The pool floor is pitiless. You slip slightly, pressure flows fluidly across your skin, and you curse quietly in your mind. An internal balm. A man laughs beside you, not cruel or mocking, soft, something between exasperation and disbelief. In this moment, someone else shares your disbelief. You register this. Another heartbeat more. Your cheeks ache from the cold's impact. Your bones feel distant, but your mind is alarmingly sharp, an ironic clarity brought by discomfort. You can't stop the internal monologue. Why would anyone do this? Perhaps they chase the flush that follows, the bloom of warmth returning, a kind of metaphor in flesh. Or maybe it's ritual, a ceremony of reset. But right now, none of that matters. What matters is holding still, holding breath, letting your skin acclimate or protest until the fragile piece of numbness arrives. Your breath steadies. At first just a little. Your exhale turns softer, less jagged. You close your eyes, welcoming the narrow pools of darkness behind your lids. The chant of warm rooms, of scraped skin, of scented cloth, of icy plunge. Everything merges into a meditation on thin margins. You feel your diaphragm release, deeper. Your hands slide to your chest, and every beat feels audible in silence. You stand, not convinced of your sanity, but grateful for the moment's brutal simplicity. A soft drip echoes as someone emerges from the pool's shadow. Water trickles down their torso. You feel the slow creak of wood and muffled shifts that signal movement. Another bathgoer steps out, flesh pale against bright marble. They run a hand across their jaw, a sign of returning to warmth. You hear nothing but the world breathing around you, and your breath slowly sinking in kind. Your shoulders drop in slow release. The initial shock dissolves into glaze. You feel fish-like, softened, descending into an internal calm. The cold doesn't numb. It clarifies muscles, nerves, spirit. Your head floats above your chest. The water holds you, stills you, demands nothing but presence. You inhale one more time, cool fullness swirling into your chest, then exhale into the hollow of the frigidarium. It hums a lullaby. You drift. Each exhale, a lull. You feel so light, so quiet. Thoughts recede. Doubt recedes. You are here, nothing more, nothing less. A body in water, a breath in stillness. You begin to sense warmth returning from your core, a slow reflow of heat that sets your muscles to thawing ribbons. You feel new, worn, bruised, cleansed in equal measure. You open your eyes when you're ready. Pale reflections shimmer across the pool's surface. Your arms rearrange themselves. A soft wave of clarity settles. Today's calamity is behind you, yet also sharpened. You register your body's humiliation and resilience together, and you whisper inside, why? Because ritual demands so. You stand, breathe, then step forward, out of the cold embrace. Your feet meet marble warmed by passage. The corridor awaits. Towels, massage, steam again. You carry the cold in your bones, woven into your chest. The next chapter drifts like a whispered promise. You ease away from the frigidarium's abrasive clarity, dragging your feet along the now warmed marble as your breath steadies into gentle sighs. Ahead lies the central pool, the pond of your unwitting reflections, settled in the middle of the bathhouse like a calm lake under a lowering sky. The soot-darkened ceiling arches above, slick with condensation, and somewhere beyond your peripheral vision, the clatter of sandals and soft drip of water thread through the lingering fog. You step forward and let your body sink into the tepid embrace of the pool, shoulders submerged, spine buoyant. The water resists, welcoming, wrapping around your ribs and hips like a slow exhale. Time blurs as minutes coil and unwind. Your arms drift under the surface, fingertips grazing the silken edge of stone, tracing textures worn smooth by centuries of backs and bellies, hands and hooves, the silent passage of bodies seeking stillness. A low hum of conversation lingers, indistinct murmurs from far-off corners. You breathe deeply, chest lifting as though in prayer. Above, droplets gather on the vaulted ceiling, gathering weight until gravity births them. Tiny silver bulbs that plunge without warning. There's a subtle tension in the water, currents whispering where someone stirred, someone shifted, and someone else exhaled so softly it might have been a sigh or a release from below. Then comes the bubble. 5, 6, 7 soft orbs rising in a curious cadence. They appear near your foot, breaking the taut surface tension, releasing a wide ring of iridescent water that flutters against your calves. You glance down. The pool's surface warps, reflecting the vaulted dome like an undulating mirror. The bubbles are proof of another's presence, intimate and unexpected. You lean back, ears tuned, waiting for the next pulse or tremor. Your mind drifts as the water laps around you. Strange to think how such a small act, an effortless release of air, can ripple so far beyond itself. You inhale again, deeper now, the scent of damp stone and ancient musk filling your lungs. Do you feel offended? Annoyed? There is a sudden burst of amused relief, a reminder of human universality in a place that can feel sterile despite its warm water. In that moment, a tiny existential tremor shakes the calm. Even here, in a ritual built of heat and order, your body is not the only one that betrays you. The echo of the bubbles fades, but the idea persists. You don't see the person who caused it, but you feel them nonetheless, the reminder of their flesh and breath. Mortality flickers in your mind. How grotesque, how human, how unavoidable. You glimpse the line between calm ritual and bodily absurdity, that thin membrane where dignity can drift away on currents of water and laughter. Your shoulders rise as you breathe out, chest heaving gently. You press one knee to your chest, the water's chill crawling into your thigh, boundary dissolving into damp warmth. You taste salt or metal, or the faint flavor of oil still clinging from earlier rituals. Your mouth parts as if to speak, to laugh, to apologize to the empty air, but nothing escapes. Only the pool receives your silence, and it holds it, reverberates it, lets it ripple outward. Tiny things begin to matter. A stray pebble of grit underfoot, a stray hair tickling your calf, the slow slide of water dripping from your elbow. Each sensation is a reminder. You are here, you are alive, and yet this bodily betrayal connects you to every nursing child, every coughing elder, every artisan who sweats, bleeds, or farts unseen beneath stone arches. This is life in its bare, unfiltered truest form, delicate, absurd, unglamorous, unavoidable. You wonder, when did shame seed itself into the mind? Was there a time when releasing air into water was as natural as breathing? Something in the bathhouse's quiet gravity insists that it shouldn't be, that this place, built for cleansing and ritual, should be impermeable. But the water proves otherwise. It is porous, it leaks, and so do humans, so does life. There is no perimeter tight enough to contain it. You straighten your posture. The pool's calm returns, like dawn after a night's tremor. You breathe again, deeper, calibrating against the echo in your bones. The water cradles you, holds you steady. You close your eyes, inviting warmth to seep back after the frigidarium's sting, after the sweat and exertion, after the rosecloth and brutal scraping. Here, in this quiet, you allow stillness. Here, you allow the bubble's echo to linger. The sound repeats softly. Another bubble, another iridescent ring widening outward. You resist noting its source. You resist holding judgment. You simply breathe, acknowledging the pulse. A sense of gentle humor settles in your bones. A grin too slow to form, yet present in the softened curve at the back of your mind. Standing in a marble pool, contemplating mortality because of a bubble, is proof of everything. Mortality, yes, but also resilience. You can sit in absurdity and survive. You can float in foibles and still drift toward calm. Your ears tune to the drips overhead again, the muffled murmurs, the scrape of strigil somewhere else, the low footfall of sandals on wet stone. The world is not silent, but it is slumbering. You are solace amid its breath. You search the water's surface, catching dim reflections of vaulted ceilings and marble columns, and find your own face, pale, slick, breathing. You watch the rise and fall of your chest and consider, this is what you are, the laughter and the waterborne bubble, the heat and cold, the comfort and the claustrophobic squeeze of ritual. You are the sum of all these sensations, layered, complicated, human. A warmth begins to bloom in your chest, perhaps solidarity, perhaps grace, perhaps acceptance. You float there as the world breathes with you. The bubble's echo becomes a lullaby, a promise. All of this, the absurdity and ritual, are part of the same quiet descent into being. And through it all, you endure, and endure softly. The ripple fades. You rise on tired legs, dripping, weighted by awareness. The pool tilts around you as you step toward the edge. The next ritual awaits. But before you proceed, you pause. You inhale one last breath of echoing space, of shared human noise beneath marble arches. The bathhouse hums around you, indifferent yet alive. Your foot presses against the cool stone rim. You feel the gravity shift as you cross the boundary between water and stone. Another drip falls somewhere behind you. Your skin tingles, and you whisper in thought, let the next stage come. The ache in your joints is deceptive. It feels like progress, as if the heat from the caldarium, the oil from the stranger, and the scraping from that cursed strigil have finally softened something inside you. But the illusion unravels the moment a shadow falls over your back and a pair of coarse hands announce their presence like two uninvited relatives arriving just before the bread runs out. The masseur, or whatever euphemism they use for this domestic executioner, does not speak. He doesn't need to. The language of pain is universal, and you're about to become conversationally fluent. His thumbs begin their descent at the nape of your neck, and it's less like a massage and more like he's kneading guilt from your vertebrae. The pressure is the sort that makes you question what you did to deserve it. You attempt to relax, but that's difficult when your spine feels like it's being ground into meal by a man whose fingers could probably unhinge a clay jar with a glance. Each push uncovers another ancient sin stored in your shoulder blades. You're not sure whether to breathe deeply or just apologize. The bench you're laid on is about the width of a loaf of stale bread and only slightly more forgiving. It smells faintly of oil and regret. There's no cushion, no towel, just your half-naked body greased like a festival pig, baking gently in the after-steam of the caldarium while someone digs into you with the intent of solving an argument he's having with life itself. You think back to the times you've sat too long on a hard stool or rested your head against a sun-warmed rock. Those were luxury compared to this. Here, every knuckle pressed into your flesh feels like a minor betrayal. The oil, once warm and slick, begins to feel like a sticky trap. It holds the heat against your skin, which is not entirely helpful considering you're still sweating from 3 chambers ago. The masseur has now moved to your arms. These are not your arms anymore. They are meat logs, unworthy of kindness. He rolls them back and forth as if testing them for splinters, as if your limbs are furniture he didn't order and is considering returning. When he reaches your hands, there is a brief moment of tenderness. A single finger is bent just far enough backward to make you consider your relationship with mortality. Then it's over. The moment passes, and he's cracking your knuckles like dry firewood. A man to your left makes a sound, possibly a grunt, possibly a sob, and you realize he too is being reassembled from the inside out. You exchange glances briefly. It's the silent understanding of 2 people who have been mugged by culture. And then he finds your lower back. There are no words, not in Latin, not in any tongue known to you or your ancestors. Whatever he does to the muscle just above your hip is so precise, so unforgiving, that for a moment you are convinced he has reached inside you and is rearranging your thoughts. You picture your spine like a rotting ladder, and he's testing each rung with his elbows. If it breaks, it's your fault. Someone nearby is humming. Why? You do not know whether this is part of the therapy or just another torment, but the off-key vibration of the melody bounces off the stone walls and into your molars. It joins the orchestra of sniffles, snorts, groans, and skin slapping against oily stone. There's a brief reprieve when the masseur moves away, likely to procure another fist or perhaps check on his livestock. You don't know. And you're left to lie there in a puddle of yourself. The oil is beginning to cool, forming an uneven slick across your back like the surface of a disturbed pond. You breathe, and it feels like inhaling through a damp scroll. When he returns, he does not announce it. He simply resumes, this time focusing on your legs. This is where all hope dies. The thigh is a cruel landscape, a marshland of lactic acid and failed ambition. The way he presses into it suggests he's looking for something that doesn't want to be found. Perhaps a coin you swallowed as a child, or maybe just your soul. You try to think of something pleasant, the smell of bread baking, a warm fire, the time before this, the time before bathhouses, before oil, before society decided that being flayed alive by a well-meaning stranger counted as leisure. But the thoughts won't settle. They bounce off your brain like pebbles thrown into a windstorm. All you have now is this table, this pain, and this deeply personal exploration of your muscle fibers. He ends, finally, with your feet. It's supposed to be soothing. Perhaps in another world it is. But here, it's like he's trying to flatten them, pressing with the force of someone angry at your arches, someone who believes your heel carries secrets. The oil pools between your toes. You think you hear a squish, and then stillness. He moves away again. No nod, no farewell. You remain on the bench like a discarded project, glistening, steaming, softly reeling from the experience of having your body interpreted like a miswritten poem. Your muscles tremble, not from exertion, but from disbelief. You attempt to rise, and it feels like someone else's skeleton is inside you, confused and unwelcome. Your skin smells of herbs and sweat and faintly of existentialism. You wonder if you'll be expected to tip him. With what? You don't know. Your dignity was left behind in the apoditarium. Somewhere down the corridor, water drips rhythmically from a basin. A low burble suggests that someone is being dunked again. The man beside you has not moved. He might be asleep, or he might simply be waiting for someone to collect the remnants of his self-worth. And then you remember, you're not done. There's still more to come. The bathhouse does not forgive. It merely cycles. The stone beneath your feet is slippery when you slide off the bench. You stand, trembling, slick, and wondering how the Romans managed to make self-care feel like warfare. You take a breath. You smell oil and salt, and somewhere, faintly, oranges. And as you shuffle forward toward the next horror in line, your skin burning with the memory of each press and pinch, the sound of soft sloshing ahead tells you that what comes next involves water. Cool, glistening, unpredictable water. The floor is still warm beneath your bare feet, though it carries the faint echo of footsteps no longer present. The steam from the caldarium has begun to thin, not so much disappearing as redistributing itself into every fold of your woolen tunic and the vulnerable creases behind your knees. You carry with you the vague, slippery feeling of having survived something oily, exfoliated, and morally confusing. It's the kind of exhaustion not born of effort, but of enduring too many textures in rapid succession. You think it might be over, that perhaps you've done enough. But no, you are mistaken. A man clears his throat in a way that sounds more like a threat than a request. He does not announce himself, and yet somehow, without speaking, he has communicated everything you need to know. This is the bathhouse barber, and you are now his. His space, if you can call it that, is not a room, nor even an alcove. It's a bench wedged beneath a low stone arch, beside a shallow basin that has seen more earwax than water in recent memory. You are ushered toward it, not with words, but with a kind of practiced glance. The kind of look that says, "This will be unpleasant, and you will sit down anyway." The bench creaks under the weight of your resignation. It is slick with condensation and faintly tacky, like an old butcher's block in a room that's forgotten what fresh air smells like. You lower yourself onto it, with the same enthusiasm one reserves for receiving dental work from a neighbor with strong opinions and no license. The barber, for his part, begins with your ears. Of course he does. Because Roman grooming isn't so much a luxury as a controlled violation of boundaries, yours mostly. He does not ask if you want your ears cleaned. He assumes this in the way one assumes the sun will rise, or that lentils will always taste a little like damp bark. His tool appears. It is thin, metallic, and shaped like a scoop. Not a gentle scoop, like something that might cradle soft cheese or confidence, but a scoop designed to dislodge secrets. It glints in the weak steam-filtered light, the way a bone might glint from under thawing earth. He begins to dig. At first, you are merely aware of it. A tickle. An intrusive tickle, like a spider made of intention crawling along the edge of your brainstem. Then, it escalates. Slowly. Determinedly. As if the barber has located not wax, but the very seat of your memory, and is now attempting to extract it like a particularly stubborn olive pit. Your spine stiffens in protest. Your left eye begins to twitch in Morse code, perhaps tapping out a silent plea for rescue. You try to think of warm things, bread, sunlight. That time your cousin once laughed so hard goat's milk came out of his nose. But these thoughts are brittle. They crumble beneath the scraping. There is a moment, a brief, glistening moment, when you are sure he has touched your soul, not metaphorically, but literally. You feel it retreat, like a small, frightened animal, deeper into the recesses of your being, where even barbers cannot reach. You have never been this clean. You have never been this violated. He moves on to the other ear. The second assault is worse, because you now know what's coming. There is no hope to shield you. no curtain of naivety left to protect your inner monologue. It is just you, and the scoop, and the slowly rising suspicion that you have done something to deserve this. You hear sounds, not external ones, but internal. The kinds of sounds one associates with plumbing or distant thunder. A wet pop, a soft hiss, a noise like regret being ladled from a bowl. The barber grunts, apparently satisfied. You do not know what he's retrieved, but you hope it's something valuable. Perhaps a memory of childhood joy. Perhaps a small portion of your dignity. He turns now to your face. His fingers are cold and unreasonably strong. They smell of olive oil, smoke, and someone else's lunch. He pinches, prods, and wipes. His cloth, which you suspect was once white, now holds the collective sorrow of half the neighborhood. He applies it to your cheeks with the same tenderness one might use to scrub a wine stain from a mosaic floor. He is not unkind, just indifferent in the way of someone who has seen too many noses and not enough poetry. You are shaved, but not with a razor. That would imply precision. You are shaved with something resembling a knife that has ambitions. It scrapes with a dull confidence, removing both hair and context. You did not ask for this. You did not know facial grooming would feel like a negotiation with entropy. You think perhaps this will be the end. But no. There is one final indignity. He plucks your eyebrows, not in the modern, symmetrical way, not with concern for aesthetics. He simply removes what displeases him, and you, apparently, displease him a great deal. Each hair comes out with a tiny burst of existential clarity. You see your ancestors. You remember old shame. You forget your own name briefly, and when you remember it, it sounds foreign in your mind. The barber does not speak. He nods barely. You are dismissed, not with gratitude, but with the efficiency one reserves for clearing dishes that have overstayed their welcome. You rise from the bench, lighter than before, not spiritually, just in surface area. Parts of you have been removed. Your ears feel hollow. Your face hums with the aftertaste of iron and ambiguous soap. You walk away slowly, your sandals slapping faintly against the wet stone, your skin tingling with the vague sensation of having been edited. Somewhere nearby, someone is arguing about figs. Someone else is humming a tune with no melody. A breeze from the hippocaust drifts up a vent and reminds you that this place is not built for comfort. It is built for rituals, rituals that chew through your nerves like moths in linen. As you pass through the arch, you glance back, just once, at the bench and the man who manned it. He is already preparing for the next unfortunate. The scoop gleams again, the cloth is wrung out, and you, poor scrubbed creature, now understand that some things were never meant to be clean. The air grows cooler as you descend another corridor, your cheeks raw, your ears echoing. You wonder what the next room holds, and whether your sense of self will survive it. And beneath it all, your stomach begins to gurgle, not from hunger, but from anticipation or fear, the kind of dread only a Roman bathhouse lunch can inspire. Softly, the steam from the warm room still coils around your calves, like exhausted thoughts you can't quite shake, when you decide that social grace might be a useful companion in this endless procession of strangers. The change from physical discomfort to something deeper, mild, persistent anxiety, radiates from your chest as you steady yourself on a column of marble whose chill seeps into your spine. You suspect your voice might shake or crack, but it must not. You clutch a damp linen strip in one hand, the kind meant to dab at sweat, but instead offering only a semblance of control. Around you, murmurs press against the smoky air, soft Latin drifting like incense, thick enough to taste. The sudden decision to speak comes unbidden, like a ripple in still water, and before you realize it, you're edging closer to a cluster of bath-goers whose towel-wrapped forms tilt and shift like curious sea creatures in the steam. Your foot touches mosaic tile, smooth except where it's pockmarked by centuries of trafficking feet. It's here, in this way station between warmth and cold, ritual and routine, that you steel yourself. You inhale, a blend of oils, perspiration, mingled breath from bodies you can't name. You hope to borrow a kindness, a laugh, a nod, but you forget that you do not belong. The words emerge before you can hush them. They land like an awkward pebble in the milling crowd. The ripple falters. Your breath falters too. A shoulder turns, a towel tightens. There's a pause, a refocus of attention, and you realize what you've asked. A question too personal, too poorly constructed, entirely the wrong key in this door of conversation where politeness and propriety move on invisible tracks. Your cheeks burn, not from steam, but from sudden shame. It's quiet here, but a hush heavier than any roar. The man you've addressed raises an eyebrow you hadn't noticed before. The question sits, unclaimed, and dies. The space between you crackles, not with electricity, but with the silent agreement that you have, accidentally, breached the social moat. Your skin itches. You press a hand against a cold marble pillar, willing the creeping heat to dissipate. You pretend to shift your towel, careful to make no sign of wanting to leave, but the impulse is already there. A string of conscious thoughts buzz low. Why did I say that? Would they laugh? Why is my voice so loud? Why do I feel like everyone is listening? You imagine your sibling, the grumpy one who fell asleep in the changing room hours before you arrived, now snoring loudly enough to put the neighbor's rat on alert, and you feel a pang of longing for familiar, even abrasive company, for a voice you know, even if it complains. Here, in this expanse of tile and steam, there is only distant clatter, the grind of pumice on skin, the hiss of hot water running, someone clearing their throat too emphatically. You replay the failed attempt to connect, each memory as persistent as the flecks of olive oil still clinging to your arms. A woman walks past, carrying a small, still warm cup of watered-down wine. You'd consider thanking her, but words still float just out of reach, tangled with embarrassment. The water-sweet heat of the bathhouse presses on your back, a gentle but unwavering reminder that movement brings scrutiny. To linger is to risk more missteps. To leave is to admit defeat. You remain, pinned between worlds, weighing your options like a traveler stalled in a mist-shrouded port. You want to escape back into the gentle anonymity of the clothes return room, where all you had to worry about was someone slipping on wet floor. You're halfway toward it when someone else, another bathgoer draped in linen, chooses to speak. Their voice is small, timid, but it reaches your ears. You wonder if you've upset something in the social current and now they're trying to mend it, or if you're being offered a lifeline. The phrase is grammatically correct, perfectly polite, too polite for this place. They're just asking a trivial question about the temperature. Nothing heavy. A kind push at the social door, meant to lift you back into conversation. You pant softly in relief and terror, noticing for the first time how ragged your breath sounds against the hush of the tepid steam. You nod. You try to nod too much. Your head wobbles. You rub your armpit with the damp cloth, hoping to appear modest, poised, graceful. The phrase you manage rattles free, but it's too late. The correction lands, a gentle, patient correction on your Latin conjugation. The emphasis is on a syllable you didn't elongate properly. Everything feels like a piercing spotlight on your inadequacy. You stay polite. You realize it's not cruelty. There's kindness here, a teaching tone. But kindness is hard to hold in this pool of strangers when all you feel is small and overheated. A bead of sweat slides down your side, and you press your arm to catch it, smearing it into your towel. You taste salt where your lips brush the cloth. Your heart pounds, not from heat, but from the embarrassingly human moment of being corrected, gently, in full view of others. You wonder how it must feel to belong here, to possess the ease of knowing how and when to speak, what phrasing carries no weight, what volume feels neutral. You feel the awkward hardness in your chest, like a pebble rocking in your shoe, making every step unreliable. You consider pretending a sudden bout of indigestion, giving yourself a reason to leave gracefully. But that might prompt questions. You're trapped by your own limbs, too tired to improvise. You slow your thoughts. Try to feel the marble beneath your foot again. Anchor to texture, not anxiety. It's not working. The steam clings to your lashes. You blink to clear it, and your vision blurs. Each breath you take is thermally steeped, moist enough to taste on your tongue. You realize you haven't swallowed since arriving. You were too cautious to drink, worried about public displays of thirst, of weakness. Your throat dries. You swallow hard, and your Adam's apple stands out. Sweat beads higher on your forehead. The scent of olive oil is thin now, replaced by something more metallic, coppery. A flash of the Frigidarium's chattering plunge resurfaces in your mind. You'd give almost anything to be cold, to feel a shock that wipes your stomach clean of social dread. But this moment, this hush, holds you in place. You're part of it now, a living body in this bathhouse ecosystem. Your trembling hand, still clutching linen, presses at the mosaic walls, cool with age, not prudish to your awkwardness. Time passes. Another bowl of wine is handed across a steaming threshold. You close your eyes a moment. Imagine the goat in the courtyard back home, bleating in the morning hush outside your window. You remember its absurdly loud bleat, carrying through dawn, like a raw trumpet. You're surprised to miss it, but you do. You linger. You breathe in steam. It's all you've got. You stay until your muscles ache from stillness, until you recognize that your mind, overloaded with self-consciousness, is more exhausted than any heat could make you. You realize that failing at small talk here is less a personal flaw than compliance with ancient social codes you never learned. It's not your fault, but acknowledging that doesn't stop your skin from crawling. You edge toward a quieter corner, choosing distance over participation. It's not grace, but it feels safe. A stray breeze, helped by the lifting of a door, sniffs at your back. For the first time since arriving, you awake to cold. It's enough to remind you who you are. Someone uncomfortable, yes, but human, inelegant, grateful for moments of cold. The idea of miming your way back to anonymity gives you a bitter, resigned smile. Warm enough to faint, cold enough to hope. The misfired words are fading now, drowsing at the edge of steam and marble. You close your eyes, breathe through the thin veil of shame and exhaustion, and you wait for the world to shift again, for the challenge of subtle conversation to drift away like steam through an open window, leaving only the ache of a day endured and the slow comfort of its passing. And as that veil of heat settles around you, soft and insistent, you drift toward the next chapter, into the hum of overheard secrets and gossip, where you might somehow fit just a little better. Softly, the steam from your last misstep in small talk still coils around your shoulders when you realize the bathhouse holds more than heat and rituals. It holds stories, whispered strands of lives interwoven like vines climbing marble columns. You shift on your feet, aware of your soaked towel, and the faint rumble of voices travels beside the hiss of distant pipes. Each utterance, each sigh, drifts across the tepid air, seeking ears willing to catch scandal like pearls sinking in slow motion. The bathhouse, you sense, is less a place for bathing and more a hive alive with buzzing, drawn toward any drop of curiosity in the warmth. Your chest tightens with the awareness that you are not merely bathing, you are being observed, not by stone-eyed statues or colored mosaics, but by bodies pressing towels, leaning in, capturing every slip of mention, every muffled rumor. You try to sink deeper into the marble bench you've claimed, the cold permeating through cloth, trying to disappear among men who seem born to belong. You hear a name, not yours, familiar, perhaps someone of status, a preacher's daughter, a senator's wife. You taste envy and relief in the same heat-fogged swallow. Envy because the mention grants her presence meaning in this cavern of steam. Relief because it's not your own name being sifted like grain through tongues. Silently, you allow your eyes to drift toward where two towel-wrapped figures lean so closely that steam rises between them like a gentle plea for secrecy. You imagine their words. It is said she was seen at the forum yesterday. Or, I heard he had a deposit confiscated. Phrases that seem weightless here, drifting and dissolving into the haze, but that carry the heft of reckoning outside. They flutter softly, distantly, but they are shrapnel if you're in their path. You shrink into the bench. It's cool, unpleasant, but comforting in its solidity, as though clinging to its stone might hold you still, while tides of rumor swirl above. In the alcove behind you, there is a shift. A slow, careful intake of breath followed by almost inaudible laughter. It curls around your ear. It feels familiar. You've heard it paired with gossip whispered across kitchen hearths in your childhood. The goat in the farmyard, standing silent until the neighbor's wife arrives, punctuating every sentence with that same soft rumble. You think of that goat now, mighty in inertia, feeding calmly through early morning mists. You realize the bathhouse is, in effect, its echo, this sprawling beast of tongues and half-heard secrets, feeding itself on fleeting gossip and half-truths. Your skin, still slick with olive oil and sweat, creeps. You press a finger along a seam in the marble bench. It is rough, worn by soles and sandals. You press harder. You want to puncture the steam with something real, something tangible. The voices swirl, drift higher in playful mischief. They say he is exiled. She was seen in tears. They quarreled in public. Each snippet is a live ember turning soft, meandering, into a flame that sparks in the hush. You want nothing more than to rise, to flee into cooler air, but you are rooted here like a tile deep set in mortar. A bowl of sweetened wine passes by. You watch the man offer it to another who declines, their head shaking in silence. Solitude becomes a preference here, not discomfort. Your stomach, heavy with embarrassment and resinous oils, tighten with minimized need. The crowd, once imagined as supportive in its confluence, reveals itself as predator, patient and curious, drawn to the slightest wiggle of narrative. Your presence offers nothing of interest. You breathe invisibly, hoping to remain anecdote-free. You lean forward now, not to listen, but to flatten your gaze on mosaic floor. You note how the tiles are cracked, ruined by time and traction, yet still inlaid with care. Small seashells, stars, patterns meant to uplift the eye. They remind you that beauty and wear can coexist while carrying hidden stories in every fissure. Then you realize that here, these tiles have soaked in centuries of overheard gossip. Each broken corner a cracked joke. Each color a silent witness to swirl of names and reputations rising and falling in steam. The hush of linen shifting beside you, and you feel observation behind your shoulder. The whispers resume, with your uninvolvement as subject now. Where's she from? What scandal brings her? You sense these thoughts more than hear them. The realization shivers through you, cool as frigidarium after calidarium heat. It's in this moment you understand. The bathhouse lets you in, not for your flesh, your smell, your sense, but for your story, to be woven into its tapestry. Whether you consent or not, you're now part of the narrative. Your heart drums, slow and heavy, trying to breach the hush. You close your eyes. You imagine the goat again, its ears twitching at distant murmurs of worms beneath the floorboards. The goat doesn't care. It feeds. You envy its peace. You feel sweat drip from your elbow, and you dip your palm to taste it. Saline, neutral, but personal. If nothing else, you own that drop. The bathhouse can't claim it. You shift toward cooler columns that support the vaults above. The steam is thinner here. Voices are muffled, less lively. You feel the marble cold against your spine, hear the distant scrape of strigils somewhere down the hall. You wonder, do the voices follow you? The shifts of towels come too often. They slide, creak, coil. You doubt you'll ever be free of them. Still, you edge further, pressing stone with your back until the tremble in your legs calms to a hum. In this half-return to solitude, you find clarity. The bathhouse is indeed a hive, every body a bee buzzing toxins of rumor and taste. But here, against the marble, you rediscover your own stillness. You press shoulder firmly into stone and breathe slowly, pulling sweetness of silence into your lungs like water thirstily vacuums the emptiness in a cracked amphora. You loosen the towel at your waist, letting its damp weight settle gently against your skin. Hushed voices flicker past, but fade into distance behind columns. You hear them less now, and they hold less power. You direct your attention inward, to the pulse at your wrist, to the slow drip of water from a nearby fountain, to the fine tremor of your calf from awkward posture. You hold those sensations close, real, present, no gossip woven into them. The weight of overheard names, marriages, alliances, misdeeds, they swirl above your head in steam. You decide, invisibly, to remain separate for now. You lean further, chin resting against chest, eyelids fluttering in the steam. The bathhouse may thrive on stories, but it has not taken yours yet. Not completely. You meet the hush of it with quiet. You let your breath slow, let your skin cool. And as the murmur of gossip fades deeper still, you feel yourself drifting. Not from scandal, but from heat, shame, and overhearing. The marble presses firmer now, the steam lifts, and you sink. You focus on the texture of water against towel, on the stillness that remains when conversation ends or passes by. You feel it settle throughout your limbs, slow as dusk sliding over countryside. Your story is safe for this moment. You rest into that, waiting for the next challenge between tile and breath, between rumor and body, as the bathhouse hums on around you. Softly, you let your vision blur, the curl of steam above mosaic drifting like a last breath before sleep, and you surrender to its quiet promise. Softly, you realize the bathhouse's steam has become your constant companion, pressing in around you like a heavy, damp blanket clinging to every muscle and thought. And you notice that the light filtering through the small oculus above has shifted from bright to a muted dusk glow that scrapes across the mosaic floor. And you realize you've been here for 4 hours. 4 hours in a place that devours time, where clocks do not exist, and where the only measure of passing moments is the weight of oil on your skin, growing heavier with each cycle of heat, scrape, and shock. Your muscles ache in slow increments you're barely aware of, like a candle burned too long at both ends, and your mind feels like a soft, unwound spool of thread, unraveling in the thick, fragrant air. You pull your towel closer around your waist, its damp folds sticking to your skin in spots, and wonder how it is that a ritual advertised as cleansing has left every inch of you raw with texture and sensation. The heat of the calidarium, the sting of oil, the scrape of the strigil, all those elements coil tightly into a single lingering ache that spans your spine all the way down to the soles of your feet, where the marble has pressed raspingly through your soaked, sandal-less soles. You shift, pressing the outer edge of your foot against the smooth curve of the floor's mosaic, noting how the small shells embedded there, once smooth and pale, now seem brittle, as though they too are weary from hours of barefoot traffic and overheard conspiracies. And every shell greets your skin with a brittle whisper that reminds you just how long you've lingered in this place. Your throat feels parched, even though sweat still seeps from every pore, as though your body refuses to stop expelling warmth. You remember the cup of wine, long sipped, and the water vessel you let slip from shaking fingers. The cool splash forgotten as each wave of steam pressed your attention away from thirst. Then withdrawal. You lean your shoulder against one of the tall marble pillars, the stone mottled with lichen green stains and damp spots where the water drips steadily from unseen leaks above, like slow tears from the aged building. The water pools at its base, flowing indoors and forming a tiny channel that runs across the floor, carving away dust and pollen. And you realize you could easily be memorizing every drip and spiral and turning yourself into water yourself, formless and fluid and fading. Breathe in, breathe out. You count the breath, matching it to the rhythm of footsteps echoing in the distance, hushed conversations drifting, the distant scrape of a towel against the stone floor. Everything is familiar now, too familiar. The bathhouse has folded itself around you, shaped your senses to its subtle hymns, the hiss of hot water seeping under a door, the low hum of voices mixing with the drip of water, the muted flex of aching joints stepping between pools. You close your eyes for a moment, hoping to find distance, but the contours of marble columns etched behind your eyelids remind you of where you are. You acknowledge that this place has consumed your attention for 4 hours and redefined how steady time can feel when a body is in a slow siege of its own feeling. You reach a hand to your stomach, fingers tracing the wet line where towel meets flesh. The skin is slightly pruned, lines like tiny furrows that make you feel as though your limbs are carved from old wood, drained of sap, but still stubbornly functional. And you understand that the bathhouse holds you in that liminal state. Not unclean, not refreshed, not quite human again, nor entirely absorbed into stone. You are waterlogged, mind diluted, senses stretched thin and retuned to minute textures and tiny sensations. The slip of oil, the micro-cut sting of a scrape, the pulsation of heat against your sinuses. You sit down again, settling into the terrazzo mosaic floor, its cool surface offering a relief so subtle you almost doubt it. Yet it envelopes your calf, slick with moisture, and you feel a tremor travel upwards. You know each muscle is learning to grit itself into a drowsy exhaustion, but your mind is awake to the fact that time has no currency here, only endurance. Your senses stretch backward. You think of earlier, the bustling entrance, the dip into warm bowls of water, the cycles of calidarium and frigidarium, the half-hearted laughter, the snake of gossip. Now, all those memories are layered, compressed, and overflowing. You feel as though you've existed in several days' worth of ritual inside these walls, more deeply than one normally lives outside of them. A faint squeak interrupts the quiet, perhaps a rodent racing above, or another footstep behind a partition. You lift your head, focusing on the triggers of the place. You note again the persistent humidity in your lungs, altering the taste of thin dust on the air. You let the tile edges shape a cradle around your back. The cold marble cools your spine, but warmth still collects in your forehead and cheeks, reminding you softer temperatures exist just beyond the bathhouse's interior. You notice how time has reshaped relationships here. A towel-wrapped man who earlier seemed original and imposing now feels generically anonymous, like a statue worn smooth by centuries of admirers. The gossip that felt so sharp now seems circular, lingering in the air and losing edges, turning into cloud. You realize the bathhouse has its own gravity, pulling everything toward an indistinct center where names lose meaning and smells become your memoir. You, too, merge into the narrative of damp bodies, marble floors, murmured exhalations. You try not to inhale too much deeply, aware each breath brings more steam into your lungs, more cake of wet heat into your sense of self. Your leg curls beneath you as you let one arm drop to the floor. The towel shifts. You're aware of the faint chill where it parts from your skin. You try to sink deeper into that break between warmth and coolness, hoping to feel a point of stillness so soft it might shimmer. The 4 hours have given you deep acquaintance with discomfort. Perhaps they'll leave you with an understanding of something softer. Your senses trace the moisture drifting down a pillar where algae grow in faint veins, and in that simple observation, you begin to pull yourself back. You press eyelids together and count 4 heartbeats, long, measured, desperate for pause. You think of the goat again, that silent confidant in an entirely different time and place, standing still and holding no rumors, no purpose other than breathing and chewing. How unbothered it seems, and how it knows nothing of bathhouse ritual, yet understands quiet. You let that thought anchor your mind. 1,200 minutes, etc. 4 hours. You realize now you must begin to leave, that you cannot both let the bathhouse claim you entirely and also remain for the next wave of rituals. Fatigue pairs with clarity, soft as a blanket laid across worries. You ease away from the pillar, mindful of the marble tile shifting beneath your shifting weight. You rise slowly, as though you fear disturbing this temple of sensation. You smooth your towel. As you step toward the changing room, the mosaic floor cools your bare feet, restoring some sense of the fractal world beyond steam haze. Your lungs feel cleansed of words. A faint ache pulses behind your ears, and you feel the length of time in your body. 4 hours etching themselves into muscles and mute memory. You step out into the corridor. Its sounds shifted. The same footsteps, now shuffled. The hum of voices, now softened by distance. Your towel slides against your hip, your tether between solitudes. You pause at the threshold, feeling the first cool edge of outside air whisper intrusion. You place a hand on the stone doorframe, its surface damp but not clammy, its solidity grounding you once again to the tether of time outside the bathhouse. You close your eyes, breathe deep. You taste dust and olive oil. You feel everything you've been through in these hours. The ache, the absorption, the slow, deliberate bleaching of identity, and the quiet salvation of returning yourself to the edge. Then you step through, leaving behind 4 hours of unbroken ritual, knowing tomorrow you'll return. Somewhat changed, somewhat resigned, but still drawing breath. And as the corridor's echo grows fainter behind you, you carry with you all that the bathhouse has given and taken back again. You walk on, and the chill outside the steam washes over your ankles, and you remember there are still 2 hours left in this cycle, and that tomorrow they'll begin again. The marble's memory lingers faintly on your feet, urging you toward the next chapter of shock and ritual, pain and water and laughter that feels foreign now. There is no more time left here, only the promise of the threshold beyond which colder winds await. The heat has faded now, not entirely, but just enough for your bones to remember they're tired. Every crevice of your skin feels lightly scalded and faintly sticky, like you've been marinated in humanity. You no longer glisten, you glimmer, faintly, sadly, like a sun-dried fish left on the wrong rock. There comes a moment, somewhere between your 5th repositioning on the warm stone bench and the realization that your fingers have shriveled into small, untrustworthy raisins, when you sense it's time to leave. Not because you feel clean, not because you feel ready, but because there's nothing left in you that hasn't been steamed, scraped, or silently judged by strangers. You rise slowly, like bread that's lost the will to rise. Every joint creaks. You smell like herbs, old sweat, and defeat. You wobble toward the apoditarium, the changing room, dreading the final humiliation of the day, the great garment gamble. Your belongings are not where you left them. Of course they're not. You were warned by that overly cheerful cousin who claimed bathhouses were relaxing. He failed to mention they were also a masterclass in organized chaos. All around you, piles of linen, wool, and mystery fabrics are strewn across wooden pegs and stone benches in a fashion that suggests either mild forgetfulness or deliberate psychological warfare. You spot a tunic that looks familiar, beige, wrinkled, loosely stained in the armpit region, just enough to trigger a flicker of déjà vu. You sniff it cautiously. It smells like someone else's week. You back away. Another garment beckons from a nearby hook. Cleaner, newer, almost wearable, which should have been your first warning. No self-respecting Roman owns a tunic that white. It's a trap, probably laced with lice, or worse, status implications. You try to remember what you wore in. It's difficult. Time in the bathhouse doesn't follow the rules of ordinary life. It stretches and folds like bread dough, only soggier and far less comforting. You think your tunic had a small rip near the hem, a stain shaped like a disgraced senator's profile, and a smell best described as honestly lived in. You search, you paw, you peel back layers of someone else's dignity. You find a sandal that might be yours, just one. The other has gone off to a better place, possibly on the feet of a more decisive man. In the end, your options are as follows. A threadbare tunic that looks like it's been through at least 2 revolts, or one that feels suspiciously damp to the touch and carries the haunting scent of goat. You choose shame over nudity. You tell yourself it's fine. You're only walking home through 3 crowded streets and a forum. As you wrap the strange cloth around your steaming limbs, you realize you've forgotten which direction home is. The oil on your skin has begun to chill, congealing in creases you didn't know you had. You hear someone behind you sneeze dramatically. You flinch. You are wearing their towel. Your hair drips. Your toes squelch. You shuffle toward the exit, clutching a bundle of not-your-things with the cautious dignity of someone who knows they have lost the war, but not the will to walk away from the battlefield. Outside, the sun is brighter than you remember, cruel in its exposure. Your eyes narrow. People look at you, possibly recognizing that you are dressed in the emotional equivalent of a wrong identity. But no one says anything. This is Rome. Everyone is pretending everything is fine. You wonder how many people have left the bathhouse this way, misclothed, disoriented, spiritually exfoliated. You imagine an entire population dressed like strangers, wandering home in the wrong linens, nodding politely at each other with the shared knowledge that none of this is quite right, but it's too late to fix. You try to remember which direction the bakery is, not because you want bread, but because standing still feels dangerous. Your thighs are beginning to chafe. The tunic is climbing in places it was never meant to explore, and your single remaining sandal has developed a pronounced limp. You pass a boy selling olives. He squints at your robe. You squint at his olives. Neither of you speaks. This is an understanding, not a conversation. At some point, you think you hear a fig drop from your belongings. You don't turn around. That fig is gone. It belongs to the road now. And as your damp, mismatched figure disappears into the slow golden light of late afternoon, you begin to suspect that reclaiming your dignity will take more than a change of clothes. Perhaps it will take time, or perhaps it will take another visit to the bathhouse. And that, unfortunately, feels inevitable. Because tomorrow is coming, and the bathhouse will still be there, waiting, quietly, greasily. The exit is not so much a threshold as it is a surrender. You've stood in front of it 3 separate times now, each attempt foiled by the slow, spreading realization that you're still missing something. A sandal, a sense of dignity, your last figure, your ability to care. At this point, you would trade any 2 of those for the third. You clutch your replacement tunic like it owes you an apology. It is not your tunic. Yours was stolen, or repurposed, if we're using the local euphemism for theft that smells faintly of lavender and betrayal. The garment you've ended up with is slightly damp in a way that defies both time and explanation. It clings to you like a toddler with separation anxiety, and it smells like it's been hugged too many times by someone who eats only fermented fish. You pull it over your head anyway, because you have no other choice, and the towel you were considering wearing home has a hole in it that would make modesty more of a suggestion than a reality. As the cloth settles onto your shoulders with all the grace of wet seaweed, you exhale sharply through your mouth, because inhaling through your nose now feels like an act of violence. Your hair, if it can still be called that, has fused into an accidental style that lies somewhere between windswept senator and confused hedgehog. It's damp, but not from water you trust. Somewhere along the process of bathing, scraping, oiling, and sweating profusely, your scalp has acquired a texture that suggests a subtle layer of beeswax. You touch it briefly. You regret that choice immediately. The floor of the changing area is littered with the regrets of those who came before you. Bits of straw, broken comb teeth, the occasional discarded earring, and an ominous smear of something brownish red that could be clay, or could be not clay. You don't want to know. You step carefully, but not carefully enough. Something cold and slick finds your heel. You pretend you didn't notice. People pass you in a steady stream, some fully dressed, others wrapped loosely in damp fabric that has seen better empires. They move with purpose, confidence, an ease you do not possess and never will. One man whistles as he walks, a towel draped jauntily over one shoulder, the very picture of someone who hasn't just questioned every choice they've made since puberty. You hate him, quietly. You remember your basket. You had a basket. You placed it right near the cubby with the cracked tile that looked like a sneezing goose. It is no longer there. In its place is another basket, nearly identical, except this one contains a suspiciously clean pair of sandals, a carved ivory toothpick, and someone else's fig. You hesitate. It is a good fig, plump, ripe, possibly sacred. You do not touch it. You are not ready to become that person. Instead, you begin your final shuffle toward the exit, barefoot, damp, and spiritually eroded. Your footfalls are squishy in a way that suggests you may never be dry again. Your skin is technically cleaner, but also stripped of natural oils, joy, and perhaps several layers of your sense of self. Your pores are open, wide open. You feel like an emotional sponge, ready to absorb everyone else's tension for the next week, whether you want to or not. At the threshold, you glance back one last time, a kind of wistful reflex, like peering into the mouth of the beast that just chewed you and decided you weren't worth swallowing. You half expect your dignity to wave at you from the edge of the caldarium, perhaps lounging near the fig thief. It does not. It is gone. Outside, the air slaps you with its cool indifference. After hours of wet warmth, the breeze feels both invasive and medicinal, like when someone tells you an uncomfortable truth, and you thank them through clenched teeth. Your skin tightens. Your spine pops. You remember muscles you forgot existed and regret finding them again. The sky has shifted. Where once there was sunlight, now there is a vaguely golden smear across the horizon, the kind that tells you the day is not quite over, but it is tired of trying. You relate. Deeply. You take your first full breath in hours, and it tastes like dust, olive smoke, and faint despair. Home is somewhere ahead. Somewhere up the road, past that man who definitely took your original tunic and is wearing it with a confidence that borders on criminal. You trudge forward. Your new sandals, if they can be called that, make a slapping sound that echoes against your self-respect. You are damp. You are exhausted. And you are now quite certain that you were never meant for public bathing culture. Or public anything, really. Behind you, the laughter and splashing of the bathhouse fades. Ahead, a long evening of discomfort awaits. Drying out, redressing, pretending the oil still clinging to your elbows is not attracting every speck of dust in a 3-mile radius. You are not clean. You are merely scrubbed raw and oddly perfumed. Your feet ache. Your skin itches. Your soul feels lightly exfoliated, and yet somehow you know, deep in the greasy crevices of your now mottled collarbone, that tomorrow you will be expected to return. But for now, you just focus on not tripping over your own sadness as you limp toward home. And somewhere in the distance, the bathhouse exhales, as if satisfied with what it has taken from you. Soon, you'll remember what tomorrow brings. But not yet. Let the dusk carry you, quietly, just until the next plunge. You step into your dimly lit home, the door creaking in on a draft that feels like a grumpy sibling nudging you awake. The air inside is cooler here, but not kind. Each breath pulls the damp olive-scented despair deeper into your lungs, a reminder that the bathhouse wasn't a one-time trial, but a loop you have willingly stepped into. You close the door behind you slowly, as if shutting out not just the space, but the ritual itself, the gathering steam, the scraping metal, the echo of strangers' laughter and muffled pain. You lean against the wood, letting its grain press against your back in silent solidarity. For a moment, you hold on to that feeling, and then, almost against your will, you remember. Tomorrow you must return. Because this is not a spa day. This is not a chance to escape. This is your life now. Or rather, this is the ritual that defines your life. The same pungent heat that pressed into your lungs today will push again tomorrow. The same sharp pain of the strigil will greet your skin once more. The same rumors, half heard and half forgotten, will coil around you. The same cold plunge that makes your heart pound against your ribs, like a desperate plea, will demand your presence again. You wonder, with an ache that settles in your chest like a flat stone, why? Why this routine that leaves you more raw and ragged than when you entered? It's as though civilization demands submission through steam and scrubbing. Your body a canvas for humiliation disguised as hygiene. And you are not quite sure how you agreed to that. Your feet move forward before your mind can protest, sliding over the cracked flagstones of your home's entryway. They still carry the memory of the bathhouse floor, slick but abrasive, grippy in a way that reminded you of kitchen tile that's been scrubbed too often with too rough stone. Here, the ground beneath you is more forgiving, but its softness feels like a new indignity after the harsh, unyielding surfaces you left behind. You pad forward, legs shaky, muscles whining in a century-old dialect of protest, wishing for at least a moment of quiet that doesn't echo with the promise of immersion and ordeal. In the corner of the room, you see your towel, dry now, though stained with ancient tributes of sweat and oil and maybe tears you refuse to let fall. It lies folded on a stool, and you almost want to thank it, or at least pat it on the shoulder, for whatever comfort it offered in those brief, dull glimmers when the heat pressed too close or the cold cut too sharp. You let your fingers brush its fibers as you reach past it, grabbing your tunic without looking. You know it's damp again. Someone must have left it draped over the stool, sharing its fate. Your hands remember that touch, sticky, clingy, reluctant to let go. As you fasten it around your waist, you feel the cling of regret and surrender wrapped tighter than the waist cord ever could. The lamp on the table flickers, casting weak, shivering light across the cracks in the plaster and the threadbare rug that's seen better centuries. The goat, who never leaves your side in silence, slips in, her hooves soft against the boards, the smell of her hay and slightly sour udders mingling with the olive oil fug that still ghosts your skin. She nudges your calf, a small, comforting gesture, an assurance that at least one being in your life remains unaffected by the bathhouse's oath. You squat to scratch behind her ear, feeling her coarse fur and the quiet acceptance she offers. Her presence is grounding in a way few things have been since the moment you stepped out of the changing room, gift-wrapped in olive oil and existential dread. You close your eyes. You listen to the hum of insects beyond the walls, the slight whistle of the wind through a cracked shutter, the gentle rasp of your own breath as your chest heaves, your body working overtime just to maintain its own fragile coherence. It all feels far too loud and too quiet, all at once. You remember how, earlier, under the whitewashed vault of the tepidarium, you thought you might vanish into the steam. That dream remains vivid, your body dissolving into the mist, leaving behind only the faintest whisper of skin and bone. Today the bathhouse stripped layers from you, but tomorrow it demands you return. Stripped again, raw yet rejoicing in the promise of cleansing you never asked for, of submission worn like a charm. You realize the cruelty isn't in the act, really, but in the repetition, in the ritual that promises purification, yet delivers only erosion of self, a daily reminder that endurance is not victory. You rise from the stool and move to the hearth. You slide another log onto the embers. The small rush of flame that springs to life is both a comfort and a threat, warmth that could heal or burn. You let it crackle, listening to the tiny explosions of wood fiber as the room begins to warm, inch by inch. The scent of smoke drifts upward and mingles with the residual olive oil on your arms and chest, forming a heady perfume that traces you the way a memory lodges in skin. You breathe it in slowly, as if it might steady you for what comes next, because tomorrow is coming. A silent sled sliding down a hill you have no option but to ride again. You move toward the small table where a bowl of grain porridge waits, meant for supper, but which tastes like ash in your mouth. You spoon it anyway, feeling the gritty texture scratch across your tongue. It's enough to fill the emptiness in your stomach, but a poor feast for your mind. You chew in slow circles, savoring the dryness even as you yearn for the rich, pulpy figs of earlier that someone else now owns. Each bite reminds you that satisfaction is a fleeting thing, easy to lose and hard to claim. You glance at the door, half expecting the bathhouse to loom there, steam-shrouded and persistent. It does not appear. Only the night stands guard beyond the threshold. Black air, twinkling stars that seem oblivious to your plight. In their silence, you find both comfort and loneliness. The bathhouse will come again, but for now, you are alone with the quiet, and it feels heavier than any crowd. You wash the bowl in water warmed over the embers, and the soapless cloth feels luxurious compared to what you endured earlier. The goat hums softly behind you as you rinse. The cloth glides across your skin, gentle and hollow in comparison to the strigel's scrape. You rub your arms in circles, as if to remind your flesh that it still belongs to you, even though tomorrow it will once again be shared with water, oil, strangers. You place the bowl beside the hearth and return to the stool. You unfasten the cords of your tunic. It slips away like a second skin, and suddenly the cool night air on your arms feels exquisite. Biting, yes, but joyous in its contrast to the bathhouse's scorching embrace. You stand there, freestanding and cold in the hush, and you realize it's been hours since any part of you felt truly ungoverned. Dusk deepens. You step toward your sleeping mat, an old patchwork quilt over straw. It is humble, but it is yours. You fold your tunic and lay it beside you. You stroke the threads, marveling at the softness that comes from familiarity rather than novelty. You think about tomorrow's morning, the rising, the gathering, the walk through cobblestone streets, the gaggle of half-dressed bodies pressing into yours, the steam, the chill, the elder Romans already boasting about their durations and tolerances. You think of the goat waiting for you outside the changing room, perhaps an anchor in the madness, or a witness to it. You lie down, letting the straw bend beneath you. The quilt settles around you like a promise, but you know better. Promises dissolve in steam. You close your eyes and feel the ache in your shoulders, in your ankles, the tiny abrasions on parts of your skin you can't quite reach to scratch. You feel the faint prickle of olive oil and dead skin still lodged at your elbow crease. You feel regret, resignation, a tired acceptance that this is what will come next. Sleep rushes in gently, but not fully. It hovers over you like a reluctant guest, checking the clock, unsure if it can stay. It breathes warmth into you. For a moment, you almost believe it will bring relief. But your thoughts drift, as thoughts will, to the cold plunge, the oil, the scraping. You are already there again, submerged. The goat's breath rubs against your leg, a bovine lullaby. You don't move. She hums again, softly, low and steady. You feel yourself drift, a slippery slide from wakefulness to fog, riding the edges of memory and exhaustion. The goat lingers, grounding you as you descend. You remember tomorrow. Even as you slip away, you remember. And that memory is already becoming a dream, quiet and persistent, a soft echo of what must be endured again.